Hello, and welcome to Horror Movies and Shit. I'm your host, Jim, and with me as always is
Or,
Bark. How are you today?
Jim, I know you love it whenever I say living the dream.
Yeah, it makes me want to punch babies. I love it.
Well, that and just like your general life, yeah.
That's true, because nightmares are dreams too. Just saying.
True.
Anyway,
And how are you, Jim?
I can't complain. I'm
Well, you can
surviving.
survive.
I'm not working today, so that's a bonus, right?
Not for me. I don't care.
Mark, do you want to introduce our guest today?
Yes, we have Mr. David Washburn, acclaimed author, champion tap dancer, and beatbox Olympic champion. And David will actually show us some of his beatbox skills right now.
Right. I thought you were going to start rapping, but
Oh no, Jim's the rapper in this group.
I am
okay.
not the rapper. I'm just not. Sorry. Sorry. So, David, we brought you on today to talk about your new book.
Yes.
And I'm going to start off by saying this is a first for me. I've never been asked to, I've never had anything I've written used as a blurb. And you sent me some awesome promo materials that you're using. So that's pretty freaking awesome. Tell us about the book.
So the book it's called DIY Exorcism, and it is about a small town pastor he's got a lot going on in his life, a lot of changing.
Mm-hmm.
He's going through a separation, but he's also trying to maintain running this church that he kind of inherited the role from his passed on father. It's a small town. Everyone's looking to him, and he's sort of in a position where he didn't see himself doing this for the rest of his life, but as his marriage is falling apart, he's just trying to maintain what's working.
Right.
He has a son one weekend. He's got a 10-year-old son. His son starts just acting a little out of color, um, lashing out a little bit. And one thing leads to another. And in a knee jerk reaction, when his son gets violent with him, he handcuffs him to the furnace in the basement. Now,
Yes.
the fun thing about this story is what do you do from there? And that's kind of what I explore in this story is you've got this guy who's just at his wits end and just trying to make it, and he's trying to maintain this relationship with his son and continue to be the counselor for this small town. And now he has to figure out how to get out of this situation while protecting his reputation, not letting the mother find out, and not damaging the relationship with his son after that has happened. So he's got to figure out, well, I think this kid's possessed. I need to figure out what to do next.
And in comes Google, right?
Yeah. And bring on the internet, because the tagline is where prayers fail, search results do not.
Right. And I love that you incorporated tech into this story in any form, because I mean we all have the world at our fingertips, right? Any
Yeah.
smartphone can be an encyclopedia nowadays.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that. I don't want to spoil it, but there's one aspect that you do really, really well in this book, which they did really, really well in the book version of The Exorcist. That I think comes off really well. Like, is he really possessed or isn't he? Right?
Right.
Like, is the father just going through a mental breakdown, or is something really going on with the kid? And you never really answer that question in this book.
Right.
You just know what they go through, right? And I loved that, because you don't know what's happening.
Yeah. So one thing about my writing style that it's a little uncommon in novel writing, but I like to write in third person present tense rather than first person.
Right.
And that seems a little jarring to people who are, voracious readers. And what I like about that style is I started off screenwriting, and I'm a big fan of movies. So
Right.
through that, me telling a story, I want to tell a story through the camera lens or as a fly on the wall. So I like to just be a, third party to whatever's happening in the room in the story. So I like to tell stories in that way, of where maybe you're not the character telling the story, but you're just seeing the story play out through the camera lens, and it's just interesting to write that way.
So Veronica says that the cover is eerie and beautiful.
Yeah, my
And
cover
I
designer did
agree.
a fantastic job.
I think they did. I think it's beautiful. So what what was the inspiration for this story?
So this is a loaded question, but I'm just gonna get into it. Back in 2018, 2019, some friends of mine here, we had a buddy who was getting into micro horror films on YouTube. And I was really getting into screenwriting at that time, and I was writing, full feature length stuff and trying to just learn that craft. I wasn't really reading as much, but I really wanted to just be involved in filmmaking and something creative, and it was just something I really wanted to get into. Um, I bought a nice camera. We started getting equipment, and we filmed one short film. It's like a little 6-minute thing called The Gnome. It's not available to watch right now, but I can get that to you at another point because I think he
Could
made the link private. But
could you? That'd be
I
awesome.
I could, yeah. I did the camera work on it. My buddy wrote it and stuff, but we just had other projects that were really exciting. And one of the ideas I had was what basically was the seeds to this idea. And I wanted to tell a story about a pastor who, locks his son in the basement and he believes he's possessed. But the story was going to be a short film that's told entirely through webcam. And I was going to really rely on like the live streaming and like the YouTube vlogging. And I wanted to tell this story about this pastor, just every entry, he's just becoming more visibly disheveled. He's a little more frantic each time. And that like it was going to be a very practical approach to this kind of story. But then we just kind of stopped making films, and then it was hard to coordinate schedules, and then altogether it just fell apart. But I still wanted to write stuff, and one of the challenges we came up with that came out of filmmaking was it's hard to write a story with intent to film it because you're limited to your resources. And
Right.
you can't write in a car crash because now you got to get a car to crash and things like
Right.
that. So it just became more challenging and limiting to try to write stuff that we could pull off ourselves. It was just like four of us, so it's like the acting is limited. We didn't have like female actors like within reach. Um, so just trying to do that kind of stuff, it just became more stressful and less fun. And then as we stopped doing it, I still wanted to write. And it was a couple years later when I got the idea for Devils That Pray, and then just started learning how to write long form narrative. And that's kind of where DIY Exorcism came from. And then as I got a little more comfortable with writing long form, I'm still thinking about this idea for a short film, and I want to do something with that premise. And there's a question that I pose when watching possession films that I don't think this is going to give anything away in DIY Exorcism, but one thing that I always find interesting in possession films and when you like read about like real exorcisms, if say you have like a friend, say you and Mark live together and
That's a
yeah,
horror story right there.
yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Oh,
So
Jesus Christ. That would be like X-rated, just like the worst of the worst.
X-rated. What? Where are
No,
you
no,
going
not
with
not
this?
not in your sick toe sucking way.
but
I
it
mean,
makes for a great
violence.
sitcom. But
So anyway,
let's
sorry. Go ahead.
uh,
Myself, I'm being tortured by living with Jim. Go ahead.
yeah, so let's say let's say Jim is possessed or
Oh,
just
well,
acting out,
Right.
and Mark is like, I don't know what to do about my roommate, and you know he's possessed. You watch horror movies, you know all the signs, and then you're like, well, I need to contact the Catholic Church. So how do I do that? You go through the motions to figure out who to talk to. Let's say you start off with a church and you talk to the local priest, and the first thing they're going to say when you say someone's possessed is they're going to say, well, have a doctor check them out. Because like I think the stat and these stats can't be real. There's just not enough. There's not a way to quantify these stats. I was looking into trying to find stats because I wanted to open the book with like possession stats, and
Right.
there's just nothing good that was worth putting there. Anywho, um, the first thing they're going to say is go to a doctor. It's mental illness. Nine
Right.
times out of 10, it's mental illness. And one thing I always found interesting when you start talking about that route of, accusing someone of being possessed, um, no one ever questions the accuser. they just kind of take it at face value, tell them go to a doctor, and then that's kind of the end of it. And then the person sends whoever to the doctor, and then they're examined, and then that's kind of the end of it. And I always found that interesting because, and it's not the same thing, but when you think of like domestic violence and like marriages and stuff, and like a battered woman and things like that, um, it's always like a one-sided story, one way or the other.
Right.
And
And
go ahead.
and I'm sorry, and this is what used to happen, right? Like with mental asylums, like a guy, like he doesn't want his wife there anymore. He'll just take her to the mental asylum and say she's hysterical, and
Yeah,
they'll
and
be like, okay, we'll book her in here, and he'll just go and do whatever he wants.
Well, that's because
yeah,
whoever tells the story first controls the narrative, right? It's human nature. You believe whatever you hear first.
yeah.
Well, I think there's a lot of social bias in there too, right? So especially back in the day, if a guy said it about a woman, he would be taken seriously.
Right.
But if it was a woman saying about a guy, she'd probably end up there anyway.
Yeah,
Right?
That's fair.
you
So
you see a lot of this with like witchcraft too. When you look at
Mhm.
like
I was going to
just
bring that up.
witch hysteria back in the day, it's like if a man got upset with his wife just because maybe she just spoke out of turn during like a
Mhm.
social event, all he had to do if he was upset was just holler witch, and it wouldn't take much at all for everyone to turn on that person.
Right.
The good old days, as we call it.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is just like the evolved version of that. It's from one spooky thing to the next. So now, it's possession. And it was just always something I found interesting is like you said, whoever speaks first controls the narrative, and
Yeah.
no one thinks to question the person that's posing the question.
Right. So Veronica wants to know, do you think that writing for the screen is easier or writing a novel is easier?
I think writing a novel is easier. You get you get to do like introspection, the way you describe a room. When you're doing screenwriting, you're writing specifically for what the camera is seeing. You're writing the dialogue because it's on screen. But like one thing that I was really bad at starting off was I wanted to include all of the notes of like what the scene looks like and the mannerisms and things, but those are all director notes, and apparently that's a big no-no. So there's definitely like there's a guide rails when you're doing screenplay.
Right.
When you're doing a novel, you're in control. There's no promise that your novel is going to be made into a movie.
Right.
So just you can go nuts. So
Yeah.
the creativity and freedom to just tell your story however you want, it's something that I don't get from any other creative outlet. And it's crazy that it took me being in my mid to late 30s to, fall in love with writing in this way and telling stories. I've always been interested in it, but I was never a big reader until I started writing.
Right.
And now it's like, oh, now I'm devouring 50 plus books a year.
Wow.
I'm trying to write. I'm not one of those people that has like a writing schedule. I don't write routinely, but when I'll take a long time outlining something just to make
Mhm.
sure that all my guideposts are there.
Right.
And once I start the writing process, it becomes like this hyper focused, obsessive thing that I do for however long. And then once the first draft is done, that's like a bulk of the work.
Right.
Um, but yeah.
Mark, you have any questions about DIY exorcism? Because you said you're in the middle of reading it still, right?
I am. I'm up to chapter 23, I believe, which is good for me, by the way, David.
No, I'm I'm a fan of
I'm
the show, and
yes,
I've picked up on it that you're
yeah,
not the biggest reader.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but I mean, so the first thing obviously, Dante and Grace are the two husband and wife. So Dante's Inferno and like Grace. Was there any? Did you pick those for that type of meaning, or were they just random picks?
I did pick that Dante for Dante's Inferno. The story as you up to what you've read, you're probably putting together some things.
Mhm.
He's he's going through some stuff, and much
Oh,
like in Dante's Inferno, he's going through the seven rings of hell to find a solution.
oh, Mark, you have so much to learn
Yeah,
still.
I feel that I just have started on the crazy stuff, right? Or whatever, it's all been kind of build up. But what
Yeah,
I will say is that whenever you're reading about characters in a book, it's sometimes easy to fall into like a lot of like cliches or tropes or whatever, or just spend too long talking about hey, this is this person, like Stephen King
Right.
does. And you just get kind of like, oh my God, just hurry it up. I think you find a really good balance between explaining who the characters are, making them believable, and not just like blind chapter after chapter of, oh, Dante when he was 12 did this.
Right.
And
There's
um,
there's not a whole lot of exposition in the story. He gives you exactly what you need to move the story along. And that's one of the things I told you that I really appreciated about this book is once it gets started, like you get a little bit of backstory and a little bit of, hey, this is, these are who these people are, but then we get right into the meat of the story and it just doesn't stop through the entire thing.
You know what's a funny thing, David? This might be bad. I don't know. So whenever he's talking with his neighbor, I always got that home improvement type thing.
Absolutely.
That is 100% the Tim and Wilson relationship was something I wanted to include in that. And what's funny is the character Barry, that's heavily inspired by a real friend of mine, guy I worked with, I'm still friends with to this day, real tight. But I was like, I always told him, I was like, I'm gonna put you in a book, but I want to make sure I do it in a way that's like tasteful and respectable and true to his nature. And I feel like I did that, but I also wanted that. I always liked that like peeking over the fence vibe. Now, granted, the fence isn't the same type of fence,
Right.
but it's that same dynamic of like these guys aren't super close, but they're there for each other in a small
Right.
community kind of way. So yeah, I'm so glad you picked up on that though, because that's not something I've openly talked about either.
And the other thing I was thinking about whenever I was reading, like, and I don't want you to even explain it because it's maybe explained later. It seemed to me that Dante doesn't maybe necessarily believe in all the stuff he's doing. A lot of it is just because his dad was a pastor, so he had to take over the family business. And I don't know if that's going to play into the later stages of it. But I just thought that was an interesting dynamic because it's almost like he wants to believe, and he's trying to make himself believe. But maybe that's my own bias coming into it. But I just thought that was an interesting character dynamic.
So that does get addressed a little bit later, a little bit through the book, for sure. In my opinion, anyway, it did for me.
It's definitely conditioning, I think. This guy's older, he's got a kid, and he's just kind of nudged in this direction.
Right.
The things that he's good at with the church are things that maybe aren't the most necessary to run a church. And the things that you need to be good at are the things that he's being quietly criticized for.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say too much because if anybody hasn't read it that's listening, I don't want to give too much away.
No spoilers. What I will say is that my wife's sister, she's married to a pastor's son.
Okay.
And there's that dynamic right there because like him and like they expect him to take it over whenever his dad stops doing it or whatever. And it's, I'm not religious at all. As you can maybe tell by my Bad Religion t-shirt. But oh, by the way, I have to show you this, and this is pure happenstance. So, Jim, I've got a lot of autographs, right?
No, I had no idea.
No, you didn't. No, nobody knows that. So I've got a lot of like horror autographs, but I usually pay for them just to meet the person, right? And it's like a reminder. But something came up online, and I had to get it. And I just got it this week. And this is a limited edition, 750 pages.
Oh, wow.
That's so many pages.
well, sorry, 750 copies signed by Blatty and numbered.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, it's just funny that, we had this podcast today. I'm like,
so
that's
funny
amazing.
Story, David. We have one of your ARC readers in the chat right now saying that she absolutely loved the book and it scared the shit out of her.
Oh, that's good. I'm so happy it scared her.
So tell us about let's talk a little bit about it's devils that pray, right? Because I always get the S on the wrong word. It's devils that pray.
Devils,
right?
plural, yep.
So tell us about that story because I have the book, I haven't read it yet. So give me a little hint into that book.
So Devils That Pray is about a group of college students that are they're freshmen and they're heading home together on summer break, and it takes place in South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
And as they're on their way home, they're kind of pre-gaming while driving, right? They're
Okay.
a couple of the friends are acting a little obnoxious, hanging out the window, just just being like the most unlikable versions of themselves. And as a reader, you'll see what I mean. Um, they basically on the road, they kind of they come across this church van, and there are a bunch of older people in it, and they're just
Right.
kind of poking fun at them. And they end up stopping at a gas station, and as they're there, this van stops there as well. And the people get off and they're inside the gas station, and there's some kind of creepy interactions. I won't get too much into it, but you find out that these people they gather at this big barn that's behind this middle of nowhere gas station.
Right.
And um, what the story does, I don't want to go. I'm for whatever reason I'm like blanking on how to talk about this story without giving anything away. I've talked about it so much in depth
Right.
now. It's been out for 3 years now. um the story though, it's really fun because the a lot of my writing and ideas, they stem from something real or some kind of overactive imagination tied to anxiety.
Yeah.
This story started as that. It started as an idea of something that I couldn't stop thinking about for months, and then I was just like, I'm just gonna outline it and see where it goes. Um, my family and I were in Myrtle Beach, and we were on our way home, and I wish so badly I knew I could find out where this place was, but we got off the highway. We were gonna get gas. And when you're on the highway and you get off the exit ramp and it says like food this way, gas that way,
Right.
and we went that way for gas, and it felt like we were near the border of North Carolina, South Carolina. I know that much.
Right.
And we're looking for gas, and I feel like we're just driving forever. It had to be like 3 or 4 miles, and I'm just like, where's the gas? Like this feels like too far to be driving. And finally get to this what looks like a BP that the world had forgot about. There's the big green sign that's just sun beaten to hell.
Yeah.
And then there's like a vegetable stand at the front of the road. There's like chicken wire fences on one side of the road, and there's like houses you can see in the distance, but there's like so much woodland between them. Then you got this gas station in the middle of nowhere, and you look around all sides, there's no street lights. The land is so flat you can't see nothing but green, and the road going straight in either direction all the way to the horizon. My family goes in, they're using the bathroom and stuff, and I'm pumping gas and I'm looking around. I see this massive barn behind this shitty gas station, and there's so much like overgrowth in between the driveway and the gravel and the barn. And I couldn't stop thinking of what do they even do with that barn? This place is so run down, and this place is so creepy. Oh, this place would be terrifying at night. There's no street lights. Oh my God, who lives in this kind of place? What kind of people live around here? Why is it so far from the highway? And my brain is just snowballing.
Yeah.
And we get back, we leave, and I'm driving, and I can't stop talking about it for like the next 10 minutes. I'm like, "Ooh, that was creepy, right? Yeah, that would be a great story. What could we do that?" And then I'm going to work, and I'm telling people about how my vacation was, and then it's been weeks now, and I'm still like, yeah, this gas station. I can't stop talking about it. And
And
from there, I'm just like, all right, let's play with this idea. What do they do with this giant barn? What kind of people would do what in this barn?
Right.
And what I came up with fed into this story. And then also the story when I decided I wanted to try writing a novel. I feel like a lot of writers will probably have some kind of version of this where the first thing you write is just you getting it out of your system. As a lifelong horror fan, I've got my favorite horror movies, my favorite tropes, and I feel like a lot of that influenced my favorite parts of writing this story. I've always wanted to write this kind of scene. I've always wanted to write this kind of character. Oh, I
Right.
wanted to write this type of antagonist. Like, oh, I wanted to write this setting. And I feel like a lot of that book was all of those things. So I feel like that's kind of my love letter to horror in
Mhm.
general. And it's even if it ends up being like my worst book in the grand body of work I do for however long I do this, I still love the story so much for everything that like just creating it was a lot of fun.
I can't believe that you're on the podcast right now, David, because imagine, you telling that story, pulling off random old barn, Jim, I think that's your house, isn't it?
Probably.
And don't you have some 10-year-olds handcuffed in there too?
Not generally.
No. So
My handcuff victims tend to be a little bit older.
so just looking at the few books that you've released as far as I know. So the first one, The Tickle Monster, right?
That was the second one.
Second one, right?
Yeah.
By the way, I hate that title because it reminds me of that documentary Tickled.
I just watched that recently.
Oh my God, that is
Oh.
such a weird documentary.
Yeah.
That whole story is so weird.
Far separation, I promise.
Oh, thank God.
So we won't talk about Jim's Tickle Barn. So that's like from what I've read, it's like a historical monster movie. Then your first one was more of a like a slasher.
Mark.
Yes.
Historical monster story, you mean?
Yeah, story, movie, whatever. It's all the same. Yeah, well, whatever. Then the next one was like a slasher, or the first one was a slasher, and now this one's like an exorcism. So, do you enjoy just like going around the different aspects of like different horror stories? And is that the way you're going to continue, or do you find that, oh, maybe I want to do another few exorcism or slasher ones or monster movie or books?
So
Seem to be movies.
Oh man, I would love a movie. But so my goal right now is I'm trying to establish a name for myself as an author. And one thing that I decided when I did my first book signing is I want to have variety. I want to have something for everybody. People come to my table and they might not even necessarily be horror readers, but they're still asking questions. Maybe they're being polite, maybe they're genuinely curious, who knows? But I would show them Devils That Pray and they'd be like, "Oh, that sounds too scary for me." Or people don't want to commit to a full novel. So I want to make sure I'm covering length of book. I want to cover format. Um, Pretty soon I'm going to be doing short stories that are only ebook so that anybody who wants a taste of my writing can get it for a little cheaper, not commit to a full novel. The only thing I haven't really gotten into yet is audiobooks, but it's something I'm kind of passively talking to people about. But and then there was another part to the question I was going to answer. You had said you had asked about the genre and if I wanted to keep changing up. So the answer is yes. I do want to do different things, but considering the 3 books that I'll have out in October, I definitely want to.
Did you just say 3 books in October?
Well, total. The DIY Exorcism being the 3rd book, October 8th. I do want to get away from religious stuff. I'm not particularly a religious person, but for whatever reason, Devils That Pray has a heavy religious context to it. DIY Exorcism, very heavily influenced. I had to talk to someone as like a religious consultant. Hey, call me out on any, if I'm doing something wrong, call me out on it. I need it because I'm like doing research, but I don't know. So it's helpful to have somebody who like goes to church every Sunday to, kind of call out inconsistencies or how a character might act and things like that. So my goal right now is I'm getting away from anything religious for a while.
Fair enough.
The book that I just started writing, I don't want to talk about it too much because I'm still like, it's still very fluid with the outline, but I did start the first draft and it's about a pop star. And that's all I'm going to say about it. I don't want to say too much more. Okay. But I'm definitely going a very different direction than anything I've written before. And so far, it's a lot of fun. I've got some scenes that I'm so excited to write. I got some nasty stuff I'm excited to write too, which I feel like I've not really got to be too gross yet. And I got a couple characters that are going to be a little creepy in terms of just their vibe altogether and some of the dialogue I've got planned.
So a few comments.
Sorry, one second. So talking about creepy.
Go ahead.
So sorry, talking about creepy, right? And in like Hollywood, some people get paid to pitch just like a line idea, a title, and then people write a script around it. Right. So David, using your kind of author brain, think about what a summary or a story would be around. And my fingers are buttery for the popcorn. But that's not creepy. That sounds like a creepy book.
Yeah.
And my fingers are buttery for the popcorn. I'm only saying that because
Veronica said that she meant from, but she's having finger issues tonight, apparently.
Oh, man.
What does that mean, Jim?
What's popcorn a euphemism for?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what we were talking about.
Popcorn.
But I did want to talk. Jamie said that when you were talking about that gas station, that the fact that you couldn't let it go, that's why you're an author, because you could build a story around it.
Yeah, that's really what it was. And in that time, I went down a lot of rabbit holes for like writing too, because my only experience had been, screenplay. So I had to completely like learn how to tell a story in that way, and made a lot of mistakes, made a lot of adjustments, learned a lot. But I feel like I'm getting my feet under me in a way that I'm developing a style that I feel comfortable with.
And Veronica says she's glad you're alive to tell the tale. But she corrected her spelling because she said it wrong the first time. But she tends to get a little nervous when somebody's alone and it's starting to get dark. So she panics a bit. So that sort of story would work really well for
her. Devils That Pray.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's.
Uh-oh. Looks like he froze.
Okay, I'm going to go to the bathroom.
Okay. Looks like David froze, guys. We're gonna hope he pops back on pretty quick. Whoop. Oh, his power just went out. We're still here when he's ready. So his power just went out. He'll be up in a minute. But you guys, what do you think so far? You need a sequel to the Tickle Monster. I haven't read Tickle Monster yet. I feel like that's a really polarizing piece of his work because some people love it. Others don't necessarily care for it. Oh, well, Ray, thank you for letting us know that you just watched the new Crow movie and you loved it. It's okay. He'll be back on momentarily. He's already getting his stuff back up and running. His Wi-Fi is rebooting. It'll be a couple minutes. So Ray absolutely loved the new Crow movie. Personally, I hated it. It was very lazy storytelling and I couldn't stand it. He's a really nice guy. I absolutely I love talking to him. He's so supportive and there he is, but he's muted. Ray is watching this live stream in the other room and I can hear myself. Welcome back, Mark.
I didn't take this to the bathroom and do a Frank Drebin. So
that's fantastic. I appreciate that.
I'm sure everyone else does too.
Oh, David, I didn't know you were on an author's corner with Lori. We can't hear you at the moment. Yeah, Veronica says, thank you, Mark. Mark, will you stop moving the camera, please? You're making me motion sick.
So, Jim, do you not know me enough by now to say don't do something?
Yeah. I know you're a 3-year-old. I get it.
No, you are.
Can you hear us at least, David?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can now. Yes, we can.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry about that. That was so weird. Everything in my house just flickered. And then I was like, yeah.
I'm in Florida. It happens every day at 5 o'clock. So I get it.
So dumb. Okay. Sorry about that. What were we saying?
Well, Loriana said that she had you on an author's corner on TikTok.
Yeah.
So
Loriana's
she's
great.
watching right now, and she's let us know that she needs a sequel to the Tickle Monster.
Oh yeah, so we had a great conversation on TikTok last year about the Tickle Monster, and I haven't put too much thought into it about an actual sequel. It's novella length,
Okay.
and I want to explore what happens after the book, but I feel like the story that I want to tell becomes a totally different book,
Okay.
and I don't know that it works well as a standalone without
You,
having.
you could do the Tickle trilogy.
I just don't know that there's enough meat on the bone, really.
You can do Tickle Monster, then Tickled, then the Ticklerd. I
Yeah,
don't.
the tickled. Yeah.
That just creeps out.
I mean, is so? Let me just ask: is the Tickle Monster what happens if your feet are under the out from under the covers?
It's a boogeyman, a big, yeah. It is a cliche boogeyman type
Okay.
of story, but I put it in the colonial era, and I kind of play with the idea that I think every household has this, especially for parents, is and also something I'm learning about myself is I really like domestic horror as a writer,
Hmm.
because that's where all the ideas come to, kids or dysfunctional families, but um, no, the fathers and kids or whoever, when it's time for bed, there's always this version of the bedtime ritual that
Right.
sometimes turns into tickling or turns into wrestling, and it uh it starts with something fun and light and then always ends with someone crying or upset or something getting out of
Yeah.
hand.
That's fair. I'm.
I don't
I've
want to
read
bring
too
up
much.
Jim.
I've
Jim,
read
don't
too much.
bring up your. No, no, Jim.
I have
Don't bring
read
up
too
your
much
childhood.
extreme horror because I thought we were going in an entirely different direction.
Um,
It's like Jim's autobiography.
So
I'm striking a chord here. I'm sorry.
it's so Veronica and Loriana and Karen on TikTok. They've gotten me into more of the extreme side of horror, which is very taboo, right? So I immediately when I start thinking about these topics, I automatically go to that space. And I know it's terrible, but it is what it is.
You're kind of ruined now, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I get it.
Veronica's reading a book that got me the first extreme horror book that I was ever proud of myself for reading. Veronica's reading right now, and I feel good about myself because she has to stop. I didn't.
Nice. I haven't read a lot of extreme horror.
So is that was going to be my next question. So this is a good little bit of a segue. Is there are you interested in going to the more extreme side, or is it more the I don't want to say tame, but comparatively it would be considered tame. Is it
Yeah.
more the mainline horror that you're interested in?
Um, I think if I had to put myself in a box, I really like suspense. I really like to play with tension.
Mm-hmm.
Just something about that, just feeling on the edge the entire time. I like that style of storytelling. I've only read a couple extreme horror novels. The first one I read was Womb by Duncan Ralston,
Okay.
and I didn't really know how to receive that at first when I read it, and I was like, I don't know. I don't even know if I liked it or not, honestly. Like it wasn't bad. It was written very well. But there
I
was there was an aspect of it where I'm like, I feel like chapter to chapter, it felt like it's a very specific feeling, my reaction at least. Um, I felt like one chapter was gross, and then the
yeah,
next chapter was like someone handed the paper to their buddy, like an eighth grader, and was like, all right, now here's my nasty part. Now you do your nasty part,
right,
and it just kind of went back and forth, getting like progressively more nasty. And
right,
and I liked it for what it was, but like I was like, oh, like I don't know where the story's going. And
right.
granted, it got to where it was going,
Yeah.
but and then I've heard like, oh, that's one of the better extreme horror books. So I don't know what to expect with other ones.
I'm going to be perfectly honest with when it comes to Duncan Ralston. I've read two of his books, and one of them was boring, so I didn't care for it. And the other one, I honestly can't even remember what it is at the moment, but I know I was not a fan.
Okay.
He didn't hit any of the marks for me. The
So,
the most extreme book.
sorry, Jim. Do you have his contact details? I want him on the podcast.
The most extreme book I've ever read is The Dark Side of Hell by Patrick C. Harrison III, and it is so fucking gross. It's
Okay.
so gross. Um, and Veronica's reading it now, but it just there's a dinner scene in there. Oh, Oh my God.
Is it pineapple pizza?
It is not. No,
Okay,
it's
okay,
got a
so it can't
lot
be
to do
that
with
bad.
bodily fluids and candy corn.
It's
Okay.
still better than pineapple on pizza.
It is
Jeez.
not. Anyway, I digress. So we wanted to talk about some movies, right? Mark,
Yeah, so we want to talk about some possession movies, but David, I just want to ask you, have you seen The Cleansing Hour?
I
that was the
did.
first movie I was going to bring up. Mark, how did you know that?
Well, no, well,
It's literally on the list of movies that I prepared for this.
See, we all were ready to
yeah,
talk about it.
because I know you were talking about DIY Exorcist and you know, the kind of the webcam episodic streaming thing,
Right.
Yeah.
and that's the first thing that came to mind.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, they definitely go a different direction. And ironically, I saw it while I was writing. So it was just like, oh. But
Nothing's original. Anyway.
I loved it though. I think I watched it the night after I watched Late Night with the Devil. Because
Okay.
I watched Late Night with the Devil, and then when I was telling people online, like, I just watched this movie, I liked it, and then everyone's like, well, you got to check out The Cleansing Hour. So I was like, well, I guess I got to check out The Cleansing Hour. And
It was a surprise for me. I'm not going to lie.
yeah, I didn't have any expectation. I loved it.
Yeah.
And I think again, you know, whenever you think about writing something for the screen, you know, a lot of times you think about Saw or The Cleansing Hour, or it's like a one location for most of it, and then you know you can do whatever you want. It's you know you don't have to pay for car crashes.
Can we bring up one of my favorite possession movies?
Is that the one with your favorite actress?
No,
So it's not The Exorcism of Emily Rose. Then.
it is not. No, it's Repossessed with Leslie Nielsen and Linda Blair. Have you seen it, David?
I've not seen that one, no.
It's a tongue-in-cheek comedy. It's absolutely ridiculous, and Linda Blair gets possessed again on live TV, and he's a TV exorcist. It's so ridiculous and campy and over the top. there's one scene in where Reagan is she's not Reagan, but it's the same makeup and everything, where she says, "Your mother's in here with us," and he looks at her and goes, "Get out of there, Mom!" So she comes crawling out from under the blankets. Like it's a typical Leslie Nielsen comedy, but it's so great.
I've never heard of that one.
You know what title in your book DIY Exorcist? Like I'm just like, okay, that's funny because I like puns. It was what's Caught for Possession. Was it Caught for Possession?
Oh, Arrested for Possession.
Arrested for Possession.
Oh, right, yeah.
I like that. I like that.
That was one of the things I was kicking around for a tagline, but I didn't know how to do it in a way that was like not too on the nose, but also like yeah, that there was that one. But then the back of the book, I have I have the book right here, but on the back there's like a search bar at the top, and in the search bar it's like how to perform an exorcism. I need to
get a physical copy. Please tell me you've set up a store so I can get a signed copy.
I haven't got a store yet, but I plan to set up like a Google form where you can submit something, and then I'll have like my PayPal and Venmo links and stuff.
Okay, please do, because I need a signed copy because I love this book.
Yeah, I'll take care of you.
Okay.
But yeah, on the back of it, I had that search bar put on there, and I was just like, well, it doesn't make sense to put a tagline in if I need to put that search bar on what he's searching for.
Right.
So I just kind of leaned away from that. But like when I've been promoting it, I've been using the expression where prayers fail, search results do not. Something about that I like. It's just a little unsettling and modern.
I'm a bit slow. Something just occurred to me. So it's called DIY Possession or Exorcist, right? And you have the home improvement thing.
Oh my God, I did not put that together. That's hilarious. I need an Al Borland character in there, man. Maybe there's more story to tell. I don't know.
Right, because you could tell the same story, but from the neighbor's point of view, right?
You could.
Yeah. See what Dante's actually going through from the outside.
Yeah.
So somebody in the chat brought up The Exorcism of Emily Rose, and I need to explain why I hate this movie. And it has everything to do with Jennifer Carpenter. I don't like seeing her on screen, and just the fact that she exists on TV or in a film annoys the shit out of me. All she does is yell and say the word fuck all the time.
So you didn't like her in Dexter?
I hated her in Dexter. She was the worst part of Dexter.
Yeah. Um, so I watched a Quarantine for the first time earlier this year, actually, and I was like, oh, that's her.
Yeah,
And
that's her.
I thought the movie was pretty good. I didn't have a strong feeling one way or the other about her performance, but
Right.
No, just Jim does.
just
Just
no,
me.
I thought it was a good movie though.
Have you seen the original Wreck?
No, that's on my list of movies to see. I have a so I got Letterboxd at the end of last year.
Uh-huh.
I built this list of movies I should have seen by now, and that's one of them.
Okay, that's fair.
Wreck is great. Wreck 2 to me is even better. Didn't like Wreck 3, kind of like Wreck 4.
Okay.
So we keep bringing up movies, David. Tell us one of the movies that's on your list, because I know you prepped some for this.
So the first one I wanted to bring up was one I just watched late last week. It's a newer movie on Netflix, The Deliverance.
Okay. So this is a really polarizing film on TikTok right now, right?
Yeah.
And it all has to do with that line that Glenn Close delivers. It's all about that demon Glenn Close line. I can smell your, and I don't need to finish, right? Because everybody knows what it is.
Yeah, yeah.
What did you think?
So I didn't mind the line too much. It was definitely like a cheesy, unnecessary line.
Right. Yes, Veronica, that one. Yes, thank you.
What I want to say, go ahead.
So I haven't seen it. I'm assuming the line is, "I can smell your buttery popcorn fingers." Is that
That's
correct?
exactly what it is. Yes.
Okay. Okay. That's too far.
That's a step too far. Right.
Yeah. Demons have no business with popcorn. But
yeah, buttery popcorn fingers.
Yeah, what are they up to?
Nightmare fuel.
Disgusting. Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, David, ignore Mark, please.
Yeah.
What did you think of the movie? I'm interested to hear your thoughts.
So I gave it a 4 out of 5, and I was really excited when the movie was over. I was like, oh, this was refreshing. I went in with no expectations, because the trailer didn't blow me away or do anything,
right?
Which sometimes is good. But what I really liked about it is you're focusing on like a lower income Black family.
Yes.
And being someone who grew up in like lower income households and stuff, and I lived in a dysfunctional home, and I had friends that this family it felt familiar in a way that I don't really know how to process. It felt authentic. And what I liked about it was you took what's essentially a possession story, or it felt like a Amityville Horror, but without white people.
Right.
And there was something like nice about that's like, okay, scary stuff doesn't have to happen to just white people in movies. And I like that they focused on a Black family in a very authentic way that wasn't meant to be the butt of a joke. And it wasn't done in like a stereotypical over the top way. Everything about the dialogue felt like very real. Like I feel like I've known these types of people in my life.
Right.
And, it felt very refreshing to see it done at a high level in a horror movie. And the last, I'd say like the last 15 minutes when everything's kind of going off the rails, that I don't know how I felt about that, but
yeah, that's pretty much where it lost me a little bit. Is I thought that the end got a little preachy.
I feel like it was a 5-star drama,
right?
And
absolutely,
maybe a middle of the road horror.
Yep.
But I like that someone took a big swing at something different.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I thought, and I understand that I can't speak to the experience, but I thought it was a bit refreshing to see all of the lead characters. What I'm not, this is going to sound awful, but the thing that scared me the most in this entire movie was Glenn Close.
Yeah.
Right. And this is going to sound terrible, but she looks awful with the plastic surgery and all of that. And then the fact that they made her a cancer patient with all of the additional makeup, she really is terrifying in this film.
Yeah. I wonder if that was by design, because like while watching the film, I feel like as soon as you find out, oh, grandma's coming to stay with us, I kind of thought that was going to be the crutch to what makes it a horror film. And I felt like I was just waiting for something to happen with her the whole time. But then they kind of play with this idea of, is she trying to be helpful, or is she, bringing something, like what's going on with her?
Right.
So I never felt I never knew what was her role going to be, and it was very unsettling throughout the film. But I was so tied to the drama of the family, the mother going through, addiction recovery.
Yep.
The kids seems like they've been in and out of the home. They miss their dad. Like it was just a very like dysfunctional home dynamic, and I think I found that much more interesting than the horror element. But
I agree. And that's what I actually heard another TikToker say, that, if you turn it off 30 minutes before the movie ends, it's a fantastic drama.
yeah, I 100% agree.
Yep.
But I couldn't stop thinking about it, so it's like, yeah, this is a possession film worth mentioning, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Mark, what do you think of the possession of the movie?
I haven't seen it. I just said that, Jim.
I'm not listening to you. I never do.
You use your listening ears.
No, no, no. I don't have those today. Those are in my other.
No, I haven't seen it yet, but maybe I'll do it.
Fair enough. It's on Netflix if anybody's interested.
Yeah.
What else you got, David?
When Evil Lurks.
I've not seen that one yet. I keep skipping it.
Why?
I don't know.
Oh,
I don't have an answer for that. There's absolutely no reason.
Is it because it's too hyped up and you're kind of turned off by it?
No, not at all. Actually, this one,
Okay.
this is not that case. That's only for long legs.
What's long legs, Jim?
What?
I've never heard of that. What
I don't know
it?
what you're talking about.
You said long legs.
What is that?
I don't know. You said it.
I've never heard of it.
Yeah, me neither.
Anyway,
So yeah, When Evil Lurks is amazing. Have you seen Terrified?
No.
That's the same director. It's also on Shudder, I think. Still, and I actually think it's a little bit better.
Really?
It's a different type of story, but you could think it's the same universe. Terrified.
Okay, I just wrote it down. That's one I keep hearing about, but I don't think about it when I think let's watch a movie.
And that's exactly that's the situation I'm in with When Evil Lurks. Like, I keep hearing about it, but then when I go to pick a movie, I either don't open AMC Plus for Shudder, or I just don't think about it.
You know what the funniest thing about When Evil Lurks is like
scene?
no, like the main protagonist, he's a fucking idiot. Like, if you think about what he does, but that's okay because there are idiots in this world, so it's kind of believable.
Yeah, it's a great film overall. I think that it did some things differently that we haven't seen yet, and since you haven't seen it, I
don't worry about spoiling it. Say whatever you want.
Okay, well,
apart from the audience,
the audience too.
Most of them have seen it.
It was I think it was my favorite movie last year that I watched.
That's fair.
So it was big. It's one of those movies too. I'm one of those people that gets turned off with subtitles. Oh, I've got to read. Like, I'll just go read a book if I have to read. I want to lay down and be willing to fall asleep to a movie if I'm like just throwing something on. And that was one I like from the get-go. You understand that, their ideas in this country with possession, it's like possession is just like another common cold. That's how they treat it. And then they've got these beliefs around it of like what not to do with the body when it's done, and then just how they have to handle the situation with a dead body that was possessed.
Right.
They just go about it all wrong. And then everything that follows that, it's just like the movie is very visceral. One thing I will say too, with it being a foreign film, it's something I'm learning. And like today I watched Speak No Evil. Something I'm learning about movies that, the foreign films, there's so much balls that goes into foreign films when they do horror. They do it and they go for it.
Right.
And I'm thinking of two examples right now of like movies that are adapted from books that were, that went there, or remakes. I always think of Knock at the Cabin. It had an R rating, and it's adapted from a fantastic book, and you don't get any on-screen kills. You don't get like impact at all for any violence, and then they changed the ending, and it just felt like, okay, they Americanized this movie, and they tried to make a hero. They took the balls out of it, and I like it just didn't sit right with me. I feel the same way with Speak No Evil.
Fair.
And yeah, and it just, but then you see When Evil Lurks, an Argentinian horror film, and they just go for it. And there's some on-screen stuff that's fantastic. There's jump scares that aren't there for the sake of being jump scares, but they legit got me. And I get excited when something gets me nowadays because I feel so desensitized to it. being someone who writes now, I follow the story beats, and I'm kind of trying to predict, okay, what are they foreshadowing? What seeds are they planting? And that
So
movie got me a couple times.
I feel the need to defend A Knock at the Cabin
Okay.
because I hated the book.
Okay. I loved the book.
I thought that the book focused way too much on the hate crime aspect of the story, so much so that it was a detriment to the story to even include it. I thought
Okay.
that the movie did a much more judicious job of dealing with it.
Okay.
I also think that I was extremely disappointed in the casting of the movie with Batista playing the main character.
Really?
Because he was supposed to be, for I hate to say this way, but he was supposed to be essentially a Mormon missionary, right? Somebody that you would not feel intimidated by.
Right.
And they made him this, 6'5" bruiser. But
Batista
I
was
thought
the
he
best
did an
person.
admirable job in the
Best-
movie.
Yeah, he was the best actor in it.
Yeah, I think he did. I do also love the way that Jonathan, that the characters in the book, the husbands were treated, because I always say, being a gay man, that I I appreciate when you treat gay characters like any other character. Like, you should be able to swap them out for a straight couple, for a lesbian couple, for a gay couple. They should all be interchangeable, and it should have zero impact on the storyline.
I
That's
agree
what
with
makes
that.
me happy.
I can get behind that.
David, by the
Maria.
way, as you've listened to the podcast, you know that Jim is our resident expert on non-English foreign movies. Jim, can you just quickly run down your top 10 non-English foreign movies for us real quick?
I can give you two off the top of my head.
No, your top 10, I said.
I can give you two off the top of my head. I'd have to actually make a list if I was going to go through 10.
Okay, go ahead.
Amelie, which is my favorite comedy.
The horror movies.
Oh, horror movie. I would have to go
Yes.
with High Tension, Martyrs, and oh God, what? Okay, so I'll go with those two to start with, and then I'd have to make an actual list.
You're a bit of a Francophile.
A what?
A Francophile.
You're saying I like French movies? Is that what you're saying?
Well, they're the only two that you mentioned.
At the moment, right off the top of my head, for sure.
I like to put Jim on the spot.
He does, and I usually fail miserably, and that's okay. I don't mind.
It works.
Yeah, exactly. It is what it is. So okay. I wanted to talk about a movie, and I don't know if it made your list, David. One of my favorite possession films is The Possession of Michael King.
So I haven't seen it, but I actually added it to my Prime list last night when I was like browsing a movie.
You absolutely should. It is about a man who is trying to disprove possession. And in order to disprove possession, he invites demons to possess him.
Okay. Yeah. This sounds awesome.
That's about as far as I'm going to go with that. But it is a fantastic found footage movie.
That's kind of a weird way. Okay, I'm not going to get into like the scientific method. And
no,
like, if you don't believe in demons, you wouldn't ask them to come into you.
I'm just going to say it's a phenomenal movie. So please, I think you should check it out. It's great.
Yeah, definitely.
Mark, what is your favorite possession film?
Exorcist 3.
It's okay.
But so when you talk about possession, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be like a Christian or anything like that, especially when evil lurks, etc. You talk about Evil Dead, right? So that's a possession movie.
Is it though, or is that more of a zombie film because they die?
It's not a zombie film.
Why not?
Because people get possessed when they're living.
Not generally. They usually die first.
No. It's not generally. If people are alive and they get possessed. So is The Exorcist a zombie movie?
She doesn't die. She doesn't die before she becomes possessed.
Correct, like Evil Dead.
Right. In Evil Dead, they tend to be closer to death before they become possessed.
No, they don't.
I don't agree with that. I don't think.
That's fair.
Well, it's not fair.
Again, this is all semantics.
Yeah.
It's actually factually true, Jim.
What facts do you have to back that up, Mark?
People get possessed before they die.
I'm talking specifically in Evil Dead.
The first one?
Any of them.
Okay. So the girl that starts counting the cards. Da, 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 da.
Cheryl. That's
She's
Cheryl.
not dead.
Yes.
She's not dead, is she? Before she gets possessed.
No, she's just experienced a traumatic
The
scene with some trees.
the sister character that gets the tree thing. She's
Yes.
not dead, and she gets
She's
possessed.
the same one that calls out
No,
the
no,
cards.
no. But
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
saying
Just so you know.
she's not dead, correct? But she gets
Correct.
possessed.
That's fair. That's
Okay,
fair.
I could go on and on and on, but
You could, but let's not do that because you're
Evil
boring.
Dead Rise, the mother, right?
Yeah.
Was she dead, Jim?
I mean, I think through all of the body
You're just wrong.
modifications
It's okay. We can move on. We can move
yeah,
on.
I think she would have been dead.
I've told you I'm trying to be more zen with you. Okay.
I think with like I think to kind of my thing for why they're not zombies is they talk, they taunt you. There's personality to the Deadites. So I would argue maybe they're more demon than either.
That's
but
fair.
also that would be more possession. But
And then we could talk about like Return of the Living Dead, where they are zombies and talk. And then we could talk about like the Demons movies where they're kind of in between.
That's right.
yeah, a lot of overlap.
Yeah,
There is.
you know, it's whatever it's like whenever you go, could Superman beat up, you know, whoever? It depends on whoever's writing it.
And now we're all nerds on the podcast arguing over zombies and demons. I love it.
So another one that I want to bring up that people don't generally talk about, and this was a complete surprise to me, was Clown.
Oh,
Clown?
Yes.
Explain. I've not seen it, so I'm curious.
Have you seen it, David?
The Eli Roth one, right?
Well, he produced it.
But okay, so we're thinking the same one. Yeah, I have seen it.
Well, he's possessed by a costume.
How do you get possessed by an inanimate object?
It's a great film.
It is, and it starts off like goofy, funny, and then it turns really, really dark.
Yeah.
And that's what I loved about it. Like I just thought it was going to be this. Because it really starts off goofy, right? And he's trying to get the clown costume off, and he's just losing his mind. But then it turns really dark.
Yeah, it's definitely worth checking out.
I stand by my original question. How do you become possessed by an inanimate object?
How do you become possessed by a demon that doesn't exist, Jim?
That is not even the same comment. Mark.
I believe it was cursed.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah, it was just a cursed item.
Well,
thank you. Thank you.
Do we have to be this reductive, Jim? Can you not like?
It's not being reductive. I'm asking for.
It's not like they went to TJ Maxx and put on a pair of fucking jeans.
But that's
that'd be a great story.
Like I was thinking like slacks right now. Like we're talking about possessed jeans.
Right, they're possessed.
Anyway,
but you can also talk about things like just trying to think like I was going to say
one of my favorites is The Taking of Deborah Logan, right? Where you're not positive until the very end of the film. Is there possession happening, or is she just suffering from dementia? Right.
But and the genius of that movie is the real horror in this world, and this is what to me possession is all about. Is about losing control over yourself, control over your.
Yes.
And possession. I don't believe possession is real, but Alzheimer's is real.
Yes.
Parkinson's is real. Where you start to you can't control yourself the way that you could, and that's the scariest thing because those are real.
And that's what possession's all about, right? Is it's about losing yourself. That you are not in control of your physical body anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, is it Ryan? Asked about Hereditary. Hereditary is 100% possession movie.
His name is Ryan.
Ryan. I don't know.
I know. That's why I'm telling you.
I know, but you don't need to say it like that, bitch.
I just said the name. I don't understand the problem. Anyway.
Kind of just to piggyback on the running joke of you were talking about retail, and I just started thinking, how like there's like animal shaped slippers. Can you imagine putting on like some dinosaur slippers and those possessing you?
Right?
I,
Then you become Tammy
I,
and the T-Rex, essentially, right?
Holy crap! I think we have an idea for like a trilogy of books slash movies
Yeah.
where people just go in and put on. It's almost like Mario Brothers, right? You
Okay.
put on something and you turn into it.
Or can you imagine like if possession was like a sudden epidemic that spread like a cold, and there's just a bunch of like children in Spirit Halloween trying on different stuff, and then all at once, boom, anybody in a costume becomes that.
Right.
And it's just this grotesque version of whatever they're
So,
wearing. Parents are
Did
freaking
David,
out.
did
David,
anyone ever watch this Spirit Halloween movie?
it's such garbage.
No.
It's such garbage.
I barely take the store seriously. I don't think I'm interested in the movie unless somebody really pitches it well.
So, Veronica is asking David for you to write that book, please.
What would it be called?
Oh, that's good. I don't know. I have to think about this. One thing I
And the
love is
tagline.
titles.
And
I
the tagline.
I
Yeah.
love titles. I spend a lot of time like playing with the idea of titles, and I love ridiculous titles too. Oh, let's see.
Um,
I'm
we're
drawing
gonna
a
have some
blank on the
dead air
spot.
here.
Right, exactly. Mark likes to put people on the spot and then comes up with nothing.
Shocked him.
That'd be such a fun story, though. That'd be a cool anthology. Just have a bunch of authors submit like ridiculous stories centered around that concept, though.
So,
It
David,
could get a
I
little
need to
redundant.
talk. So, okay, we're just going to talk about this because I haven't done this. I haven't actually made any official announcements. But Mark, you don't even know this, but HMS
You're
is
gay?
actually
No, I
working.
do.
You don't.
Okay.
Horror Movies and Shit is actually working on an anthology of bizarro splatterpunk stories.
Oh,
And all of the money that's raised through the sale of the book is going to go to a charity called the Point Foundation, which works with providing scholarships to LGBTQ youth.
okay.
Hey, I never said okay to that.
I didn't ask you.
No, it's going to go into young white straight man Christian man charity. They need the most help.
What about us? No.
You can
Yeah.
bite me for that, there, Mark.
I'm actually
No.
going to donate it to our dear soon to be president guy.
You're what?
Mr. Donald Trump.
Please don't. Let's not talk about
No,
politics.
okay,
Let's not talk about politics. So anyway, the
Anyway,
Vatican
what's
tape.
okay?
Please tell me
keep
that's
on
on your
talking.
list.
I'm going to think of a title. Go, keep on talking.
You saw the Vatican tapes?
The Vatican tapes.
It's on my list to watch, but I've not watched yet. That's got Michael Pena.
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah, and that's one that people have been mentioning to me for years, and for whatever reason, I just haven't got to it yet.
It was absolutely a surprise for me because you have Doug Ray Scott, Olivia Taylor Dudley, who I loved in The Magicians, and I always thought she could be a really good psychotic killer, and she really delivers the performance in this movie.
Okay.
What else you got for it?
Is it like a found footage thing, or is it?
Yes.
Okay. Is it done like documentary style, or is it more like
It's not. It's more
go?
done like you have characters that are discussing something, and then you see the footage from the security cameras to corroborate or to give them context as to what actually happened.
Okay.
What else do you have for us, David?
All right. See, I'm trying to go for some oddball ones now. Have either of you seen Nefarious?
So I have been avoiding that for a specific reason.
Okay.
And that's because everybody that's watched it that I know has said that there are some very political message. There's some very political messaging in that film, and I don't want politics in my horror.
I know you're talking about. And this is like a Christian movie, right? Which is okay. Like I don't care if it's a good movie, whatever, you know. Like I love The Exorcist, and obviously Blatty was a hardcore, really, really right-wing Catholic. So yeah, whatever.
I didn't know about this until after I watched it, but I watched it because I'm a fan of Sean Patrick Flannery.
Of course,
and when I watched it, I will say, just from like a performance base, a bulk of this movie is him handcuffed to a table as a prisoner talking to an investigator, and just the performance he puts on where he is going from voice to voice, and you see these hard transitions of the lines he's delivering. but there is a lot of like social political commentary. But I
Yeah.
think I thought it was an okay movie. But in regards to possession, I thought it was an interesting take on a movie, and it's
Mhm.
something I hadn't seen before. So it was something I definitely wanted to make mention of.
That's fair because Ryan just said, just ignore all the bullshit and respect how amazing Sean Patrick Flannery was
One
because he
hundred
put on a
percent.
masterclass.
And he's coming to Spookology.
I'm not.
I am. So.
I know you are. I'm not. I had two other conventions I'm going to this year. One that you turned down, and actually, our buddy Ryan is taking your place. Ryan Gratz is taking your place.
I didn't remember okaying.
You said you weren't going. What is there to okay?
He might. Yeah.
No, that's cool. That's cool.
Anyway, just kidding. So what else do we got? So let's talk about Ouija 2, The Origin of Evil, which has the it's better than the original. There's a better way to say that.
Flanagan, right?
It is. It's Mike Flanagan, and Ouija was a terrible film, right? But Ouija Origin of Evil took everything to the next level. It was well done. It was well written. It was fantastic.
Yeah, that's one I watched this year for the first time too, and yeah, I was really impressed by it.
Talk to me, Jim. Talk to me.
Why?
Just because I say so. So talk to me. What about that was a very good recent possession movie.
So it's not a possession movie.
Yes,
though.
it is, Jim.
It is not.
I mean, you're inviting something from the other side to take
right,
over you, but
they're not taking you over. You're talking to them because
so,
you're grasping.
No. So, Jim, I don't know if you remember. Do you remember the little kid that gets possessed and starts bashing his face in?
I don't consider that a possession movie.
Really?
I consider it an outside influence.
David, you see what I would put up with?
I'm not going to say it's a great movie, and I love the movie. So please, this is not.
So what is the movie about, Jim? Can you just give a summary?
The movie is about spirit communication.
Spirit communication.
Yes.
So it's just about spirits talking to people.
Or communicating, whether that's physically
or communicating, but they don't take them over at all.
So Mark, is communication only verbal? Do you not communicate through body language?
So is The Exorcist not a possession movie because they were just communicating? Pazuzu was just communicating.
Pazuzu was not communicating because there was no means of communication. They had
there was a Ouija board.
Oh yeah, for 3 minutes in the movie.
Okay. So how long does something have to be in a movie?
They could not facilitate any sort of action until they touched the hand.
So Reagan wouldn't get possessed if she didn't use a Ouija board.
That's debatable.
I think like talking about the hand though, I mean, I don't think it's any different than any other cursed object that influences possession in other movies either though. I just think that Talk to Me focused more on making a game out of it and kind of playing with like where we're at in the world and how, if it were real, how would people actually treat it?
It's kind of like a movie about like addiction and going to parties and like, hey, I'm going to take this drug, you take this drug, right?
Right.
There was a lot of that, and then people change. But people change because they were possessed, Jim. Moving on.
It's one of my favorite movies too.
It's
on my list.
I do love it.
It didn't really do an awful lot that was new.
No,
but what I thought was they really did a good job with making it more grounded and having a more grounded cast.
Yeah.
And the acting. And it's weird because this was made by a couple of YouTubers, right? And this is their first movie.
Right.
Next.
What else you got, David?
All right, I'm gonna go with there's probably gonna be some debate on this, and I'm only throwing this out there because I really like this movie, but the possession isn't until the very end, and it's The Witch.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like that movie because it's boring.
And I took a second watch, and I don't even know why I wanted to rewatch it. I think it's just because it's a beautiful and moody film.
Yeah.
But I really appreciated it more the second time around. And I think with I don't know, I was on the fence about listing this as a possession film, but I think just that ending the way it's a little ambiguous, but
It is.
I think it's a possession film.
I think
That's fair.
think
I mean,
I think the movie overall is more of like a treatise on kind of the religious fundamentalism back in the day. It's like a drama movie to me,
yeah, it
with
is.
horror elements. And there's actually two possessions, really, right? Because Black Phillip.
Yeah.
Is Black Phillip possessed, or
It
is
was
he just a
awesome.
vehicle?
Say that again.
I said, is Black Phillip actually possessed though?
Yes.
Or is he just a scapegoat?
Ha 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 ha.
Zing. No, yeah, I really enjoyed that movie on a second watch though, and it's one that I wouldn't be against checking out again in the future.
I mean, that's fair. I personally found it boring, so I did not enjoy it at all. Buddy,
Yeah.
stop. Buddy, stop. He's trying to eat the garbage bags. Sorry.
Leave Ray alone.
I'm talking about Buddy. Anyway, what else you got, Mark? What do you have?
Okay, here's one that was fairly recent, which I thought did an amazing job as far as kind of looking at religion and saying, yeah, it's a bunch of crap, but then like kind of turning the tables on it. And this is The Last Exorcism.
Okay.
The Last Extra.
Have
Have
you
I
seen
seen
that
that
one?
one?
That's the one where it's like a mockumentary and they're
Oh,
following.
with the fallen priest, right?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
he's showing
Yes,
how he
I
does
thought
like,
that was great.
yeah, I've got this crucifix and I just press a button and smoke comes out and all this sort of
Right.
shit.
Yeah.
Which is very much like the is that Marjo, the documentary from the 70s about the kid preacher who turned around and said it was all bullshit. It was all
Right.
like.
So before we go too far, Jamie has to get going, but she wanted to say, David, that she that your book was great. She can't wait to have a physical copy, and everyone should try and catch the cheesy, wonderful movie called My Demon Lover from 1987.
I haven't heard of that one.
Me either.
Thank you, Jamie.
But I thought you'd want to hear that. So The Last Exorcism I thought was really good. I love the fact that it's a priest that is basically trying to disprove possession again. I love the skeptic angle. I absolutely that's one of my favorite tropes. Like I love when you go into something and you try and disprove it and you get proven wrong.
Yeah.
But that's just me. What else you got on your list?
I feel like the skeptic angle is like the epitome of fuck around and find out.
Right, exactly. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And I love fuck around and find out. Like I can't tell you how satisfying it is to me when somebody is just whether it's founded or not, when they just deny, and then they find out that they're wrong. I love that.
Yeah, they stick to their guns. There's something respectable about sticking to your guns no matter what. But
Yeah,
then
that's fair.
and then when it you fall on your face, it's very satisfying as a viewer.
It's called Schadenfreude. But so I didn't think of this movie as being a possession film, but have you seen The Lazarus Effect?
I love The Lazarus Effect.
I thought it's a great movie, but I don't know why I just never thought of it as being a possession film.
I don't think of it as a possession film. I thought of it more of as like a Pet Sematary type of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Just with more of like a medical spin on it.
Or more of a Flatliners type thing, right? You come back from death, and you have this otherness with you, right?
Yeah, the original Flatliners was one of the first horror movies that stuck with me as a kid.
Yeah.
Like one of the first ones that I felt like I feel like I got it more, and I feel like it was like I don't know if you want to call it high level horror, but I was probably like 10 years old when it was just on TV, and I just felt like I understood this movie in a way that I didn't understand like simpler movies, or I wasn't as interested.
The scariest part about Flatliners to me was the little girl beating up Kevin Bacon.
Okay. Was that the girl who was the bully?
Yes.
Okay.
But it's because he bullied her.
Yeah.
As a kid. That was the scariest part of that entire movie for me.
Yeah.
I can deal with the rest of it. But that little girl coming for him scared the shit out of me.
I just think as a kid, conceptually, that movie did more for me than watching any slasher.
Yep.
Just something about that was like, oh, that really resonated with me in a way that horror movie, like it's not a common one you hear people talk about either.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. What about The Possession? Have you seen that one?
I feel like I had that on DVD when it first came out, but I don't remember it very well.
So that one stars Jeffrey Dean Morgan and Kira Sedgwick, and it's about, rather than being a typical Christian possession movie, it's a Jewish possession movie where they're fighting a Dybbuk,
Okay.
which really changes the mythology. And I thought it was really great to see it from a different point of view.
Yeah.
And so the Dybbuk is a box that houses a demon, where a demon is trapped. Should you open it, you then open yourself to possession. And it's about a little girl who may or may not have opened a box. And I loved it.
I don't remember any of that. I need to revisit that one because that's just one. Maybe I watched it one time and just forgot about it.
Yeah, let me look it up because I want to make sure. I can't remember if it was Jeffrey Dean Morgan or another actor, but let me look it up because I keep, for some reason, Eric Bana keeps jumping into my mind.
Yeah, I don't even know who that is, but like
He was the Hulk in the comic book version
okay.
with Jennifer Connelly. It is Jeffrey Dean Morgan and Kira Sedgwick. Yep.
Yeah, I'll have to revisit that one.
That movie was very poor.
You don't know what we're even talking about, Mark.
It's the one where they find the box.
What box?
The Diabook or whatever the hell it's called.
Dybbuk. It's a Dybbuk.
It's forgettable.
I thought it was great. I loved seeing it from a different mythology, as opposed to always being a Christian thing.
You need to watch some more foreign movies.
Such as, give me a good possession foreign film besides When Evil Lurks.
What's the one that I watched recently? Okay, I don't look it up. So, as I'm looking it up, can we talk about? Have you seen Retribution?
No.
The 1987 classic, where a guy is committing suicide. He's jumping off a building.
Okay.
And at the same time, this mafia gangster guy is getting killed. So they basically swap, or his spirit goes into him, the guy that was committing suicide, and he lives. But the spirit takes over him every once in a while and goes after the people that killed him. And Suzanne Summers is in it, and she's awesome in it too.
Okay. I really have nothing to say to that. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I've not seen that one.
The 2015 awesome Fulci-esque We Are Still Here with Barbara Crampton. Have you seen that?
No.
I'm writing it down though.
I don't like Fulci.
No, well, it's not Fulci, it's Fulci-esque.
Yes, I don't like Fulci. So why would
you've only seen one of his movies, Jim.
No, I have not. I've seen two.
What?
I'm trying to remember because somebody from Cinema Society Saturday made me watch a Fulci film.
The Beyond?
No.
Zombie?
No.
Manhattan Baby?
No.
Cat in the Brain?
No.
City of the Living Dead?
No.
House by the Cemetery?
No.
I don't know.
I'd have to look it up, but somebody from Cinema Society Saturday made me watch a Fulci film, and I went, I should have known from the eye torture in this film that this was a Fulci film.
Well, what's it about?
Eye torture.
No. Did you actually watch it?
I'll have to look it up and get back to you. But there is another one that I've seen.
Okay.
On my screen. Anyway, David, your next film. What do you got?
I have Paranormal Activity Next to Ken.
I've not finished that film. I started it and fell asleep, and I never put it back on.
So I watched it one time, and I walked away feeling like that was interesting, and just the Amish take on it, and
okay.
I really appreciate found footage because something about good found footage just really speaks to like the indie spirit of anything creative.
Correct.
when it's
Yep,
done
I
right.
agree.
So even if it's not a great found footage film, as long as the things are there, like a good setting, a good reason for the camera to be running,
Right.
and it just to be done like well as a narrative, um, I'll watch almost anything. But when you start getting into the stories where like was it Diary of the Dead, George A. Romero, like that was awful, and it was just like this is all going. You're worried about you're finding batteries. Come on, chill.
Right.
Like you're.
You could tell that Romero didn't know much about social media or technology, and he just wanted to kind of jump in that bandwagon.
So
Yeah.
can we talk about how horror, and especially possession horror, does not have to be in your face? So like the movie The Rite with Anthony Hopkins, where one of these symptoms of possession is a tremor, right? And it doesn't have to be a violent seizure, it's just a slight hand tremor or something can indicate that you are afflicted, essentially. I thought that movie was brilliant at subtlety.
Is the possession aspect just like a small part of the story?
It is not. No, he is essentially an exorcist, and he's training his replacement
Okay.
basically, and it's taking his replacement through all of these different scenarios and these different cases. And I don't want to ruin it for anybody that hasn't seen it yet, but it's I thought with there's everybody always thinks, oh well, talking in tongues or moving stuff with your mind, that kind of stuff are all signs of possession. This takes it to a much more nuanced approach, where a slight tremor in your hand, a twitch in your, I don't want to say a twitch in your eye because
It
that's
grounds
probably
it.
not accurate, but it's very subtle things that you need to look for to give you a clue as to whether or not somebody is possessed.
So, Dave, have you seen Gojim, Haunted Asylum?
No.
So this is a really good South Korean found footage movie that has some possession in it, and I highly recommend it. It's
I keep hearing good things about it. I haven't seen it yet.
it's pretty awesome because it's basically like a YouTube streamer, recruits some people to go into this haunted asylum, and things start happening in there, and he's kind of like off to the side, outside the asylum, kind of like dealing with the technical parts of it,
Right.
and he's wanting to get so many views, and I'm not going to spoil it. It's really good.
Yeah, I just wrote it down. I've seen the name before, but I've not like it didn't grab me to check it out immediately.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. So, Mark, I have a question for you. The Prince of Darkness, John Carpenter. Would you consider that a possession movie?
Yes. So here's the thing. Whenever you say a possession movie, there are aspects of it that are possession. Yes.
Right.
But
I agree.
you don't have to have the whole thing be about possession.
That's true. I agree with that.
Yes, and I think Prince of Darkness is low key one of his masterpieces that people don't talk about enough.
I agree. I love that film, but it is not part of an apocalypse trilogy.
It is.
It is not.
David?
I've not seen it. I've heard this argument on here before, but
I'm sure you have. What else do we have, Mark? Well, David, what else do you have that we haven't talked about?
The last one that hasn't been mentioned on my list is Evil Dead 2013, and I only mention that because that's one of my favorite movies. But I'm surprised none of us have mentioned it up to that point. But then considering the debate on if a deadite is a zombie or someone possessed,
yeah,
I still want to talk about it. I think it's one of the more visceral movies, and it's not a remake, but I guess a revisit to that cabin with a new cast of characters, and you essentially see a lot of the same stuff play out. But if it is a possession movie, it is probably my absolute favorite.
Yeah, it totally is a possession movie, even from the first scene, which I really like. I don't know who that actress is, but I really like her line delivery.
Jane Levy.
Yeah,
she's like, Teddy, I'll rip your soul out.
Yeah.
It's just great. The movie itself, this is a Fede Alvarez bugbear of mine. I don't think he writes likable characters.
That's true.
But it is super well directed, lit, and I love that it goes really, really hard into the gore. especially the guy that opens the book, and he deserves it. So he gets most of it.
There's one scene in it that I always go back to when I try to, like, if I find out somebody hasn't seen it, I always go to the scene where the guy is he takes the top of the toilet tank.
Yeah.
And that's just one of them, like, just the impact of that. It's done so well, the sound design around it, and you see it. It's just a gross scene. And I wish I could see it in theater, because that's a movie I didn't see in theater. And I wish that I could go see it on the big screen.
Yeah, and I always think that, in horror movies, generally it's the more relatable injuries or the more cringy, right?
Yeah.
Like in The Thing, like all the stuff that happens in The Thing, the cringiest part in that is them like cutting their thumb with a scalpel because it's relatable. So it's like, ooh.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That's fair. Mark, what do you have?
Here's another kind of low-key one that is very 90s, but I kind of like the message in it, and it's Stigmata.
But that's not a possession film. That's a religious horror. What is she being possessed by?
She's being possessed by that old priest. That's the whole point.
Oh shit, that's right. Oh my God, I haven't seen it in forever. You're absolutely right.
Thank you.
She gets taken over by that old priest. Mark,
I mean,
this is not going to happen very often, but you're right.
Could somebody please take this, like, not screen capture or whatever? Here's another one. You talk about 90s possession movies.
Yes.
Nobody can, like, even Jin can say that it's not the best possession movie ever made.
I can't say that it is the best possession movie.
No.
Which one? My favorite. Fuck you to the Catholic Church.
No. I'm not talking about Stigmata. I'm talking about another 90s movie.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead then. Sorry.
And it is the Arnold Schwarzenegger vehicle.
Oh my God! Shut up, Mark. Shut up.
It had a banging soundtrack, though.
It did. And Gabriel Byrne is a great actor. Like, he plays a great villain. But that movie is straight dog shit.
What do you mean? It's Jim, Arnold Schwarzenegger punches the devil in the fucking face. If that isn't a great movie,
but in that oh God, what was that Seth Rogen movie where you see the giant devil dome? I mean,
is it This Is the End?
Thank you. I couldn't remember it off the top of my head. But that doesn't make it a great film. It just makes it a thing that happens in the movie.
Well, you're wrong.
Or when Satan pisses and it lights on fire, like.
Okay, so I have to bring up something that Ryan just said, and this does actually play into the possession trope, right? One of my favorite soundtracks ever is the Blair Witch 2: Book of Shadows.
Yeah.
And it does play into the possession trope, but he said that everything is second to the soundtrack of The Lost Boys, and I have to say, Ryan, you're wrong.
Yeah.
So I just watched The Lost Boys for the first time in my life a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I read a book from another indie author, Brianna Morgan. She wrote a book called Mouthful of Ashes, and it's kind of like I don't know if I can call it a retelling, but you can tell it's heavily influenced by just that setting and that aesthetic and those types of characters. But she added a queer spin to it and turned it into her own thing.
Right.
And I thought it was done very well. I think I prefer that book to the movie, but I feel like also the movie is so beloved, and I might have just seen it too late in my life and too far into watching different things.
Right.
I thought it was okay.
Mm-hmm.
But man, I wish I would have seen it when I was younger, because I feel like I would have the same affinity for it.
That's fair. I mean, a lot of regardless of what Mark thinks, a lot of our opinions, especially about movies from when we were younger, have to do with nostalgia, not necessarily the quality of the content, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry, Jim. Say that one more time.
What, Mark?
Say that one more time.
Say what?
Just what you said.
What did I say?
You just said that nostalgia plays a lot into how people rate a movie,
That is not what I
despite
said
it.
at all.
Okay, then repeat what you just said.
I said a lot of how we feel about a movie that we saw when we were younger has to do with nostalgia based on over the actual substance of the content.
So whenever you say feel about a movie, you mean how much you like it.
Or how much you don't like it.
Right. Can you name some of your nostalgic horror movies that you hated?
That I hated?
Yeah, that growing up. Yeah.
I honestly can't because I don't remember.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, moving along. The 1974 Italian shocker called Beyond the Door. Either of you seen it?
No,
never heard of it.
So this movie is pretty famous because Universal Studios, or Fox, or whoever owns The Exorcist, sued them because they said you're just copying The Exorcist. And while there's definitely a lot of The Exorcist in the ending, it's actually more a copy of Rosemary's Baby. However, it's still a really, really fun, enjoyable movie. And I really recommend it.
Not if it's based on Rosemary's Baby, it's not, because that movie's boring as shit.
Well, they kind of have, I'm not going to go into it, but there's the Rosemary's Baby part, and then there's like a blatant Exorcist part. Okay. And the lead actress is Juliette Mills, who is daughter of John Mills.
Who?
Yeah, or John Mills. He's a very famous actor.
Am I supposed to know who that is?
Because he's older. Okay. Or he was older.
So, another movie that was part of our lifetime that I enjoyed was Pray for the Devil. I thought that was really well done. There's nothing new or exciting in it, but I thought it was really well done.
What was the one that ended with go to this website?
I don't know.
Maybe somebody in the chat knows.
Does anybody in the chat, anybody watching the Facebook Live know what possession movie ends with go to this website?
I'll have to Google it.
I have no idea.
Possession and with web. It's like, hey, if you want to know more, go to this website.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, nobody in the chat knows either. So I do have a question.
I was released some movies.
I do have a question for you guys, though. Have either one of you seen The Pope's Exorcist?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Nope.
Oh, what is that new one that he did right after?
I'm sorry.
Exorcism?
The Exorcists or the
Exorcism with Russell Crowe?
Yeah.
So I really want to see this, and I want to see it strictly because it's based on the child actor who was the son of the priest that played, or the guy that played Damien Karras in The Exorcist. And this is supposed to be about Damien Karras, the actual actor, Jason, I can't remember his last name, and what he went through on the set of The Exorcist. Obviously more of a story based and less realism, but it's supposed to be along those lines. I'm interested to see it.
I've not seen it, but hang on. I found the movie I was thinking about.
Is it fear.com?
It is now. Thanks to the chat, but no, it's The Devil Inside. The 2012, which actually the movie up to then.
I know that one. Yes,
it wasn't too bad. Yeah, but then it ended in that like bullshit.
Didn't care for it. David, do you have anything else you want to talk about as far as movies go?
That was all I had on my list.
Well, forget about Possession. What are some of your favorite horror movies? Like your top 10, no order, or top 5, whatever you can do.
Yeah, and please don't say Event Horizon.
Is it
Um,
Event Horizon at the Entity?
See, I told you he was going to bring it up, David. I
you
told
did.
you.
You did.
The Entity. Oh, in fact, go ahead. Sorry.
I've been waiting for the Event Horizon stuff to weave
Right.
in, and yeah. So in no particular order, because if you ask me tomorrow, it'll change.
Yeah.
I like a lot of grounded, realistic horror, but then some of the choices are going to contradict this list. But my absolute favorite is Wolf Creek.
That's fair. It's a good movie.
Terrifying antagonist. His personality is just like, it just feels like someone you would know, like just a kind of a grumpy neighbor who had, very sarcastic in nature. Um, Terrifying film.
Are you excited for the sequel coming out?
So,
I'm so
well,
excited.
hang on, Wolf Creek.
Yeah,
Wolf
they're
Creek.
making a new one.
No, well, yeah. So Wolf Creek 2, I think, was a much better movie than the
Really?
first one.
I feel like they're like right here for me.
Just because I think the first one, you know, and at the end, it's like, sponsored by the Australia Tourist Board. There was beautiful landscapes, lovely things to look at, but it just took too long to get going.
So, Mark, Veronica says that was a great jump scare when you change backgrounds.
I try my best.
So
Anyway, please
yeah,
continue, David.
Wolf Creek, definitely my favorite. And a close second would be the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake.
Oh God.
No, yeah. I just think
You're a fan of the show, so you already know how I feel about that one.
yeah, I've heard. But yes, I think when I was about to be a teenager, and I think my first job, one of my first movies I bought on VHS with my own money was the 2003 Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And it was just one of those movies I played multiple times a week, and it was just always we didn't have Netflix and streaming, so it was just, there was always a movie playing in the background of whatever I was doing in my room.
Right.
And that was just one of those movies. And I remember seeing the original one and it being like, it's edgy. Oh, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, it's the grossest movie ever. And you hear about like the video nasties and stuff, but
Yeah.
I'm not on the internet the way we are today, so you hear about it through other people. And I remember watching the original and not being as, like, I just wasn't as impressed by it. Like, I'm appreciative of it now for everything they did to get it made and how it was made and everything.
Right.
But it wasn't as visceral as people make it sound. There's kind of like this Mandela effect about the original one. It's like, it's the grossest movie ever, but it doesn't really show much. It's just
It doesn't.
implied.
You're right.
And
So originally, Toby Hooper was trying to get it released as a PG rated movie, which you can really tell, like, because everything's off screen or not really shown. Right?
yeah.
But it's kind of crazy now looking back on it. Even though, the 70s were a bit more of the Wild West as far as ratings go, that he's still trying to do that.
Yeah.
What I love about the original one is just that kind of gross documentary, almost Taxi Driver 70s. You could feel the sweat on everybody, lower budget type movie. I really like the remake a lot for R. Lee Emery, or is it Lee R. Emery?
Lee,
yeah, who's just fantastic and everything.
He his cadence influenced a little bit of my main villain in Devils That Prey. So yeah, just that type of character, just loud, in your face, a little bit militant, but a little dirty at the same time.
Yeah, he's just so intimidating. Even though he's not a big guy, he's intimidating.
There was a comedy he was in with Jason Biggs and Jack Black. Was it Saving Silverman? Did either of you see that?
I saw it once.
Straight comedy, but I mean, I don't know that it's like an iconic comedy, but he was in that as like the gym teacher or the football coach, and even in that, he's the same character, just in like a tracksuit.
Right.
But yeah.
What else you got for us, David? For your favorite?
I'm gonna say Hereditary. That's up there. Big fan. Oh, no.
No, it's Mark's background.
Oh. Drag Me to Hell. That's
I
one.
love that movie. Love it.
Um, that's one that I don't feel like gets talked about enough.
I agree. Although I do have to say that she was just doing her job. She did not deserve what she got.
Completely agree. Um, I thought it was a good plot device that
Yeah.
she had every intention to apologize and make this right. And what are the odds that the woman who cursed her dies and she just has to go with this curse? I thought it was just a fun, like everything about that movie oozes Sam Raimi. Because when you get more into the demons and hell breaking loose, it just something silly about the way he does demons on screen.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. The moment that sold me, I can tell you exactly, is when the goat started talking.
Yeah.
So have you seen Night of the Demon?
Mark, can you get your
Yeah,
wiener off the screen, please?
no, it's too big. Um, have you seen Night of the Demon from the 1960s? Basically, Drag Me to Hell is a somewhat remake of that movie, although the original is just not a comedy, right?
Right.
But it's got the same premise.
Okay.
Fair
Like
enough.
down to the banker and everything.
Well, it's really about passing on a cursed object.
No, okay.
And
So
then
in other
the
words, it
demon
has
will come.
nothing to do with Drag Me to Hell. It just has a cursed object in it.
Is Ray there, Jim?
No, no.
What what was that movie? Was it what's a movie where the guy's like, hey, it's oh no, it's not a movie. It's a comedy show where a guy's on the telephone and he's like annoying the other guy and he's like, hey, is this other guy there? He's like, yeah, put the phone over to him. He's like, then the guy just punches him. Yeah, if Ray could just punch you every time you
Yeah,
annoy me,
he's not even watching the live anymore. He watched for like 3 seconds and then stopped.
I don't blame him. Uh, anyway, Night of the Demon, highly recommend.
Fair enough.
Jim?
We're gonna finish David's list first.
Okay.
I don't have the list on hand. But let's see. I'm just kind of pulling movies out now. Barbarian is another one.
That was for you, just so you know. I don't like the pivot in the movie. I think it ruins it because you can tell where it's a movie and then it's another movie, and they just kind of force them together.
Really? Yeah. I actually liked the pivot. It kind of it felt like an old school like Tales from the Crypt kind of thing, but they just brought it to screen and there was just a good through line for both of them.
I
I
will
like
agree to
both.
disagree.
I like both halves equally but separately. I don't think they should have been in the same movie.
Yeah.
And because I try to educate Jim about this, so he brought this up. Yeah. So the first half was actually based on a short that the director had already made. And then he was like, I don't really know what to do to make this into a full movie, so he just made the other half up. And you can kind of tell that, right? I mean, they're two, as you say, it's like Tales from the Crypt, right? It's like an anthology movie with two parts to it.
Yeah,
Um,
I think what,
I don't think they hang well together, but I think individually, if you just chop them up, great.
yeah. If they were individual movies, I would enjoy them, but together, I do not like them.
I could see that. I think what I fell in love with though was just the way the movie opens up, you're automatically put off by the situation and the setting of just, you're what is it? It was a Detroit. You're
Yeah.
just in like you get this Airbnb that's in the middle of just this dilapidated town. And I just thought it was like such a perfect setting for something terrifying to go wrong. And then the direction it went with like the weird monster lady in the basement, I thought that that was such a out of left field kind of thing, but I liked it.
Yeah.
I'm
I,
glad
I,
it wasn't just like a bad roommate kind of situation, but it was so
Right.
good at like throwing you curveballs throughout the story, and then when it gets to the pivot, it feels like a whole new movie, and it was just I was along for the ride the entire time because I'm like I couldn't predict anything that was happening,
I,
and I liked that.
I guess the one through line between both sides of the story is that the first half is this modern type of, you have to be aware of your surroundings, right? And this guy is in this house, and but he's also being like, I understand that you're nervous being here, and that's why he's like, I'm not going to open the bottle of wine while you're not here or anything like that, right? So it's that kind of modern day kind of date rape type stuff. Then in the second half, the second half of the movie, she trusts Justin Long, who is a rapist,
Yeah.
right? He's literally a rapist, but she seems to trust him more, and there's a weird kind of dynamic there. But yeah,
It's fair.
Yeah.
well, it's accurate, more than fair.
So I just pulled up my my favorite movie list on Letterboxd in my face. So ironically, Barbarian wasn't on there originally, but the next one I'm going to throw out, this is probably a top 5 for me. As Above, So Below.
Haven't seen it yet.
Absolute favorite found footage film. So much detail that went into just all the little things on screen that are happening. And when I watched it the first time, I went down a rabbit hole with like interviews and explanations, and then I had to watch it again. And then I made other people watch it and watched it with them. And it's just one of those movies that it never gets old to me.
Yep.
I have to watch that again. The first time I watched it, I remember being like, it was okay. But a lot of people say it's really good. A movie that I thought on first viewing, I've seen it a couple more times, is Grave Encounters,
Okay.
which has a similar type of premise.
See, I much prefer Grave Dancers. Have you seen that one, Mark?
Yes, that was one of the like 8 movies to die for.
Die for, yeah. I thought that was one of the only ones I really enjoyed from that entire series. But
Grave Encounters has got nothing to do with that movie.
No, I don't. I like it more than Grave Encounters. That's the only reason I bring it up.
But just because I have grave in the title. How about Graveyard Shift? Are you going to say I like Graveyard Shift more than Grave Encounters?
Not so much.
Even though they're totally different movies, Jim.
Nope.
I like Biscuits and Gravy. But I haven't seen Grave Encounters. I started it one night and I fell asleep pretty early into it, and then I just never thought to play it again. But it does look interesting, and it's one that
is awesome because they do the ghost encounters, the fake reality TV ghost detective thing so well in it, and then it turns like really like creepy and scary.
Oh, really. I like it. It sounds good.
Jim, do you have any other grave, rave to the grave? What do you think about that?
Just Grave Dancers, that's all.
Just Grave Dancers.
Just Grave Dancers, that's it.
So what started World War I? Just Grave Dancers.
Just Grave Dancers.
That's just your answer to everything.
That's it. That's my answer for everything.
What killed the dinosaurs? Yeah.
Grave Dancers.
Grave Dancers.
Yes.
Yes.
What else you got? Stop making grave happen.
Okay, I got 3 more I'll name.
Okay.
This one, the Dawn of the Dead remake.
Never seen it, so I can't speak to it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, have you seen it, Mark?
Yes, obviously. Because I actually like horror movies.
Oh, geez.
No, I like, to me, like, for the original Romero, Night, Dawn, and Dead. I know a lot of people say Dawn is the best. I actually go between day and night as far as those two. They go back and forwards. I was never a big fan of Dawn because I think it was just paced poorly.
But shouldn't Dawn come before day?
Night, Dawn, Day, June.
Okay.
Night, Dawn, Day.
I'm just making sure the chronology.
Okay. Well, I can explain to you how the world works and how movies are titled.
Sure the chronology makes sense.
None of it makes sense because the Earth is flat. So no, I'm just kidding.
well,
right on the back of a turtle.
No. It flips over every night.
We're just a frisbee in space.
That's right.
But I think the remake, like Zack Snyder. Zack Snyder. But I really think the remake is much better, especially like just seeing from the opening scene. That is like nightmare fuel. There is one thing that I wish they did a little bit better, which was maybe like doing the whole bus thing at the end and stuff. Just seemed a little much to me.
A little Mad Maxy. Yeah.
Yeah, a little, actually a little Land of the Dead, which came out after it, right? I think, did Land of the Dead come out after the
It came out after.
None of it could be any worse than Festival of the Living Dead. That was awful.
The what, Jim?
Festival of the Living Dead. It's on Tubi. It's a spiritual successor to the franchise.
Okay, moving along. Anyway, Dawn of the Dead, yes, I agree. I think it was really good.
Yeah, I actually just recently watched Night of the Living Dead, the original, for the first time a couple months ago.
And, oh, really? It's great. I love the black and white version.
Yeah, I like it. But I think just the Dawn of the Dead remake was the first one I had seen of the Dawn of the Dead series, or of the Romero Dead series.
Yep.
So I think it's just the fact I saw that one first. It kind of just hits a little different for me. And then I was real big into alternative rock around that time, and having the fun play on Down with the Sickness on the outro, where they jazzed it up. I thought that was so clever. And just there's a lot of things in that movie that are memorable. A lot of imagery that at the time I felt like was just super edgy. The scene with the guy with the pregnant wife, and he's being like real protective and hiding her, and then you see what's really going on there. And I just thought like the visual of that was really crazy. I loved it.
And that was kind of like whenever they started redoing, I know it's not a zombie movie, like 28 Days Later, like the fast quote unquote zombies, right? And you know, there's a place for both, I think.
I disagree.
What, Jim?
Slow zombies annoy the shit out of me.
So you didn't like The Walking Dead?
I did not. No. Yeah. I bowed out after the third season.
So like Day of the Dead to me is like really the pinnacle of like slow zombie. There's just so many of them. You can't do anything. You're fucked, right? And the fast zombies, obviously, you know, unless you're good at cardio.
Yeah, clearly I'm a fitness guru, right?
Well, Jim, I know. What do you do 100 meters at now?
3.5 minutes.
And that's in your car.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll be back in a second.
Yeah, no problem.
Have you seen Black Summer?
I have not.
So
I've not even heard of that one.
So it's a series, but it's really quick to tear through. It's 2 seasons on Netflix.
Okay.
It's got an interesting film style, but I think it's a spinoff from Z Nation, which I didn't watch Z Nation, but
I saw 3 seasons of Z Nation and then caught some here and there.
Okay. So Black Summer is in that world.
Okay.
And what's interesting about it is the way it follows a character. You're following it through their point of view. Like you're literally, the camera is their eyes.
Oh.
And it's such a fast-paced, as it's happening kind of story.
Right.
And the zombies in it are just high octane, always coming at you, always around the corner, chasing you. And what the show does that's really interesting is it follows a handful of characters, but never at the same time. So the camera does these creative transitions where it whips, and then suddenly you're in someone else's scene. And it's just this like exhausting show to watch. And it's fast episodes, but just you guys talking about fast versus slow. I think faster zombies are scarier.
Yeah. Absolutely. Because you can get out of the way of a slower zombie.
Yeah. It just seems like there's more brain activity with a faster one.
Yeah.
I don't like when zombies can like climb and stuff though. Like I just feel like, okay, like, are you really a zombie at that point?
I got rid of Paul Rubens.
Yeah,
I agree. So have you seen The Sadness yet?
Yeah, recently. Yeah, a few months ago.
I just watched that a few weeks ago, and that, like, I've been in a slump, right, where I haven't really enjoyed a whole lot of horror movies, and I haven't enjoyed a whole lot of books because they've been tame, right? And then I saw The Sadness, and that was freaking amazing.
Yeah,
everything I needed it to be. It was visceral, it was gory, it was bloody, and it was fucking violent, and I loved it all.
Yeah, I loved it too, and I feel like if I could find books that have that level of grossness but also maintain a story on the same level,
Uh-huh.
I feel like that balance, I think I
Yeah.
would probably be more into exploring splatterpunk and stuff.
Yeah.
Um I just don't know where to start.
Broth House by Robert Essig.
Okay, you'll have to remind me that. I'll
I
put it on
will.
my
I'll send you a
Goodreads.
message. That it so Broth House with Robert Essig is about a chef that opens a soup kitchen,
Okay.
but everybody says that the soup is 5 star. Like it should be. He should be opening. He should be running a world class restaurant. That's all I'm gonna say, because it's fantastic.
So the soup is made of people.
Not gonna. I'm not.
No,
Not
don't tell
going
me.
into it.
Don't tell me. Yeah. No, I add it to my Goodreads list and my wish list on Amazon and
Yeah,
eventually get
it's
to it.
fantastic. I absolutely, that is one of my favorite Essig books that I've read so far, and I've only read 2 or 3, but I
Okay.
need to read more.
So
Um,
I have a handful of extreme horror on my shelf right now, but it's one of those things where what I've read, I think I need to have like a palate cleanser in between some
yeah,
of these.
absolutely.
Um, just because like too much too soon, it's kind of like, all right, it's either I'm bored or just not like, I don't
Right.
know.
And
I need more narrative.
that's exactly what I used DIY Exorcism for. It was a palate cleanser for me after I read I think it was The Dark Side of Hell. It was not too
Okay.
long after I read that. So I just ripped through the whole thing.
Oh, good. Yeah.
That's exactly what I needed at that moment, was just to get that grossness off of my palate.
Perfect timing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a Am I Beautiful by John Athan.
Uh-huh.
It just the cover grabbed me. And then I have Gone to See the Riverman by Christopher Triana. Everyone, that's just one of the most popular books. And then
So,
Playground by Aaron Beauregard. Those are on my shelf, and they've been on my shelf for a while.
yep.
I just need to make it a point to get to them.
I have a love-hate relationship with Christopher Triana. I want to love his books so bad. Ex Boogeyman didn't do it for me. It got caught up too much in the nostalgia, and the story suffered from it.
Okay.
And because it really was his homage to 80s slashers, and it was just too much in my opinion. So I just bought the audio book of The Old Lady, which I hear is fantastic. So I'm looking
Oh,
forward to that.
nice. And Duncan Ralston, he just had covers remade for re-releases for
Yep.
a few of his books, and one of them was The Midwives, and that's one that's been on my wish list for a long time.
Okay.
But as I mentioned, I read Womb, and I'm kind of like, I don't know that I'm ready to jump back into that type of book. But Midwives seems more like it seems like there's more of a through line story to it.
So I will give you another suggestion: The Troop by Nick Cutter.
I read it.
That was fantastic, and that gets
What
a little gruesome.
do you consider that extreme?
It dips
Is
its
it
toes.
okay?
It's not full blown extreme, but it gets close.
Because I read it and I didn't feel like it was that bad.
Yeah.
And so it like I guess I'm still trying to find out where's my line with reading in terms of like extreme, because I also read The Deep and I loved that, but I think The Troop has a little bit more. The Troop definitely has more scenes they go
It
there.
does. Yep.
Another
Another recommendation is Ride by Erica Summers and H.M. Walls. It goes a little bit harder than the Troop does.
Okay, you said it was Ride or Rive
Writhe, Writhe.
by Erica Summers.
Hey JJ, how are you, buddy? What were you saying, Mark?
No, I was going to ask David, as far as like movies, what do you consider the most extreme horror movie you've seen? And did you like it?
Most extreme. I have to think about that one. I know like what like in terms of like ones I did like, Hostel is one that I always think about. Just tonally, the movie starts off party and color and then turns into dark, dreary, and just violent, and it's like it feels like random violence with no purpose until you find out the purpose, and then it's just absolutely terrifying of like just the system that these people have running.
Right.
I love that. Obviously the Saw movies, but at some point those start to just feel like torture porn. With I feel like after the third Saw, it was all just like it was just like, here's the next creative thing, and then they're just answering questions that no one cared to ask at that point.
Yep.
I agree and disagree. I think
Okay.
the more the Saw movies went on, the more it became a soap opera.
Okay, I can see that. Yeah.
I swear I remember, they came out every Halloween, and it's almost like you have to watch the movie before on DVD before you watch the next one because it was so complicated with so many characters in it, and it's just like
that's what I
who's
mean.
screwing who over and what's going on now and who's where.
That's what I mean is it feels like every time I watch it, I remember, okay, I like this and I like what I'm seeing, but they're answering questions that are blowing my mind that I never even cared to ask. Like I don't know what to do with this information after because like it is a lot and it's hard to keep up with, and I don't really have any interest in going and watching all of the Saw movies again.
I haven't seen anything since Saw 3.
So I think what happened with the Saw franchise, right, is that Tobin Bell, they cast him in the first, and then by the third one, they're like, okay, we're going to kill him off here, and then they're like, wow, this is making a lot of money still. How can we keep on making these movies? Well, we're going to have like a bunch of his acolytes who may or may not have been in the past ones suddenly come and say, oh no, we're like Saw acolytes, and like, okay, a lot of that doesn't make sense. And then they just add more. Then his wife comes into it, and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
it's too much.
Honestly, I like all the Saw movies for that because it's kind of funny to me.
I could see that. So your question, when you walked away a minute ago, Jim had brought up the sadness.
Yes.
Oh yeah, great.
That was a pretty rough movie to watch if you're not like I didn't know what I was getting into going into it. I put it off for a couple years because it's like, oh, I gotta read. Like I didn't want to read subtitles, so it's like I really have to get in the mood to do. Like right now, Exuma is the one on Shudder that everyone's talking about, and I haven't heard anything bad about it, but like I just haven't started it yet for the same reason. But
I started it, but I haven't finished it yet.
I don't know if you read like graphic novels or anything, but there's a graphic novel series called Crossed, which is basically the sadness. I think they and I think they admitted it. They took a lot from that comic book series and just made a movie out of it. So Cross, I think it's Gareth Ennis who wrote it.
So the guy who did Preacher and the Boys.
Yeah.
I was
Preacher was amazing.
Yeah, I love it too. It sucks that not enough people. I feel like not enough people got to see that, or it just didn't grab people because it's such an off the wall premise, but it's so genius. I read the comic books because I was a Garth Ennis fan. I started with Wolverine Origins and Punisher Max years ago. Yeah. And then I didn't read The Boys, but I did read Preacher and loved it. And when I heard like Seth Rogen's attached, I was curious.
Yeah.
And then I just loved it. The show stuck pretty close to the comics for the most part too.
Yep. And another book or another movie, a series that I loved that was based on comic books was Outcast, which is a Robert Kirkman graphic novel. And they did such a great job with it.
Was that animated or was it live?
It was not, no.
Okay. I have to check that out.
It was 2 seasons on Cinemax before they became HBO Max.
Okay.
And I don't know if you can even find it anymore, but it's about a boy whose mom is possessed. And through her possession, he figures out how to cast out demons. So it's him as an adult living with that trauma from when he was a kid and then trying to help other people.
This sounds amazing.
It really is. It's super dark. It's Brett Spiner, isn't it?
Spiner,
whatever, who played Data as one of the bad guys, and he's amazing.
Data.
What? It's Data.
Only for you Americans.
No, it's awesome. I
find it. It's great.
I knew there was a comic book because I remember going to the comic book shop, and I think they had like a sneak peek in one of the Walking Dead graphic novel, the 5-issue trade paperbacks.
Yep.
I think they had a sneak peek into Outcast as it was coming out, and I think on Talking Dead, when I was like watching it live on TV, I would watch Talking Dead, and Robert Kirkman was on there hyping up Outcast as it was releasing for the comic book, not the show.
It only got 2 seasons, and I feel like it was so criminally underrated. It should have gone on longer.
I'm gonna check it out. It sounds good. I like everything I've seen Kirkman do. I watched a little bit of Invincible too. It's just something about animation.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if I need to be like in a headspace or something.
Invincible took me a long time to get into the show.
Really?
I never read the comics, and for the first while, it was like I don't really see the appeal here. But after a while, I started getting to it. So
I love
I think it's worth watching.
Okay, yeah, I think I watched like 3 episodes, and I just like it wasn't that I like consciously was like I don't like this. It was just like I just never got back into playing it.
Yeah.
Like I would say, like if you're bored, just watch the first season, and if you're still interested, keep on going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't like. Well, excuse me.
Oh, thanks, Jim. That's great.
I cannot stop yawning for some reason, but I did not like the second season. The first season was great. The second season was garbage, in my opinion.
Okay. Everybody take Jim's opinion.
Take it for what it is. It's an opinion.
Yeah. Take it for what it is. Yeah. But
Cross, like assholes, everybody has them.
Definitely look up Cross if you want to have some like really out there gross graphic novel stuff.
Okay, yeah, I got a lot of stuff written down now.
Homework, David. So next time you come on,
I think Outcast sounds the most interesting to me right now. It's a series.
It's really great, and I can't remember the main actor's name. Patrick Fugit.
Okay,
he's amazing in the film, in the show.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out.
I want to say he was on This Is Us, if I'm not mistaken, most recently.
Okay.
Anyway, Mark.
Yes. About time we did what you watched. You want to
go
first?
Before we do that, obviously I have one extreme movie to recommend. Jim?
Martyrs.
It's on my list. I haven't seen it yet.
You should move that up to the top of your list.
Mark.
You should.
You don't need to give him your regular recommendations. He's a fan of the show. Unlike most guests, he listens. So he already knows.
Well, then it should be top of his list.
Unless he's not a Mark fan.
Well, those are very few and far in between. As far as what I've watched, Jim, I've watched jack shit since the last time we talked. Yeah, there's just been a lot going on. I have not watched anything really.
Love you too, Veronica. Good night.
Bye. I did get up to like chapter 23 of this book. It was awful.
This book that you've had for like 6 months?
Yeah, it was like DIY something. DIY.
Like a home improvement thing?
Yeah, I think so. It's awful. I would not recommend it.
Heard that.
Just kidding.
So, David, what about you? What have you watched recently or listened to, games you've played, books you've read that you've really enjoyed?
I'll go with some recent watches. Last night I watched a movie. It was just a blind watch on Max. 2016, The Good Neighbor.
Oh, I haven't seen that one. Okay.
James Caan is in it. So it's listed as a drama horror. It also has the actor who plays Sam on Atypical. If either of you've watched that.
Is that where they kill his dog, or am I thinking of something different? I'd probably think
something different. The premise though is you've got these two teenage boys who they go through the motions of getting this elaborate hub in this one kid's bedroom and a surveillance system, and pretty much the film goes back and forth between being found footage and not. And basically there's always one friend holding a camera, and they're messing with this guy next door who's like this grumpy old man who, for whatever reason, the one kid next door to him hates him. And he's like, you know what? We should pull this prank on him, and we'll call it an experiment, the haunting experiment. And they get some, cameras off Sky Mall, and they install a bunch of cameras in his house when he's not there. And they basically track his behavior, and they're documenting it. And then there's like video documentation, and they've got things set up to cause the screen door to slam. They cause his HVAC system to only be cold, and when he messes with it, it gets colder, things like that. But the movie was really messed up, just the way they go through the story, and I didn't know what to expect about it, and I was surprised. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Hellhole.
Haven't heard of that one.
That one's on Shudder. Yeah, the people who did the Addams Family, they did Hellbender, and
Hellbender I've seen.
Yeah, same tone kind of. They do a lot with music and fast paced, and the thing that I like about the movie is the concepts are fun, the practical effects are pretty cool. but they do a lot of stuff with music and the pacing, and then just some of the some of the ways they do the camera transitions. It makes it feel like it's not trying to be a horror movie, also, but they don't really commit to a direction. And I don't know if that's just their style, but like it feels like an action horror movie that lacks action.
Okay.
But like I think it's like the camera and the way I don't know. Have either of you seen Hellhole?
I
Mark?
have not. No.
No.
No, I've
Was-
seen I've seen it on Shudder, but I haven't clicked on it.
Yeah, it was okay. It's worth checking out, but maybe not stopping what you're doing to check it out.
Right.
Um, I watched let's see. I watched The Demon Disorder. That's a newer one.
Right. I meant to put that on the other day, and I haven't seen it yet. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet.
I get 2.5 stars. It has some really cool effects, decent plot. I don't know. It's not one I'm gonna hype up.
Yeah, that's fair.
And then Behind the Mask: The Rise of Leslie Vernon. That's a
Oh,
2006 film.
Mark loves it. I still have not seen it.
I never heard of it until I was watching the Horror Greatest documentary on Shudder,
Yep.
and they were talking about tropes,
Yep.
and they mentioned this movie as it's just a found footage documentary style where they subvert slasher tropes.
Right.
It's better than Scream as far as that goes for me.
Sure.
I loved it because I feel like the movie knew what it was.
Yep.
It didn't go for jokes. It just had it had a character that they were following who was essentially a serial killer, and he's answering questions that the interviewer is not really asking. And he's just like, yeah, I got to really keep my cardio up, man. Because if I need people to think that I'm just walking and being scary, like I got to be able to get where I'm going fast. And he's like kickboxing and exhausted while they're interviewing him and stuff. And he's talking about all the prep work that goes into like sabotaging the house for his big moments.
Right.
And but it's not done tongue in cheek. It's done like he's committed very seriously to it, and there's just something funny about that. And like the film just takes itself very seriously in a way that makes it kind of funny, but it's such a brilliant and original thing. And I'm surprised I've never heard of it.
So I've got a recommendation for you.
Okay.
It's a film called Man Bites Dog. Have you heard of that?
No.
It's a Belgian movie, and it's almost got the same premise.
Okay.
Except there's a film crew that are making a documentary around an actual kind of like real life serial killer, not like a Jason or whatever, which is kind of what they're trying to do. But as the movie goes on, they start to get more implicated in what he's doing. Yeah, it's really good.
Okay. I just wrote it
It's
down.
one of the earlier mockumentary horror movies.
Okay. Yeah. But yeah, that Leslie Vernon movie, I was just like, I saw they made a sequel to it too.
Did they?
Yeah.
I don't think they did.
It
Did
came
they?
out like 4 years later. Yeah.
I haven't seen that.
It was the return of Leslie Vernon or something like that. So I'm very interested to see what that's about.
Um, Here's one thing, like the main guy, the Leslie Vernon guy, he really reminds me of Jim Carrey now.
Really? Yeah.
Like just the way he gets
His
off.
his energy, I can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the probably the best movie that I've seen recently, Strange Darling.
Haven't seen it yet, but I've heard nothing but amazing things about it.
Do not spoil it. I meant to go see it the other week, but just
I'm not gonna spoil it, but I will say this is one of those movies that I feel like should be seen in theater. And it's one of those movies that you're gonna watch for the first time you watch it, that's the best that the movie will be, probably. Because once you know what's going on,
right.
like that's it. Like I can't imagine the rewatch. I can't imagine there being a point to rewatching it. So if you can see it in theaters, I highly recommend seeing it there.
Are you a fan of art house horror?
I am, to an extent. Like, I mean, would you consider like Midsummer art house horror?
I don't know. I've not seen it because it sounds boring as shit to me.
I don't see Midsummer as art house.
No.
So I would so there's a movie from 2015 called Darling with Sean Young, and it is basically a woman is house sitting and she goes absolutely insane.
Okay.
And if you it's shot all in black and white and it's done really, really well. So if you like art house horror, I always recommend it to everybody.
Okay, yeah. It's one I
I
would check out.
recommend Lars von Trier's Antichrist.
Haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it.
It's
It's
goes,
something.
it goes there. I don't know.
David,
Go ahead.
Lori wants to know if you've read Stephen Graham Jones' Indian Lake trilogy.
No, I haven't read Stephen Graham Jones at all, but The Only Good Indians is one that's on my list, but I wanted to get
That's part of that trilogy.
Yeah, I didn't know it was part of a trilogy either. So is that the first book? I hope it is. But
I don't know, to be honest. I haven't read it yet, but I know it's part of that trilogy. I think it's Return to Indian Lake, or Indian Lake, I think is the third one. Only Good Indians, and there's one. I was at
Angel Lake or something like that, or
I don't remember. I don't remember I almost want to say I was a teenage slasher, but I know that's not it. I just know that book is on my wish list.
Yeah, I haven't read him yet, but I wanted to make sure that whatever I read was something that was like a good first impression. I've heard his writing is a little weird and it's not for everybody. So I want to check him out.
My Heart is a Chainsaw, Don't Fear the Reaper, The Angel of Indian Lake.
Okay. Yeah. So that's not part of a trilogy then? The Only Good Indians? Yeah.
No, it's not.
Okay. That's the one that's on my list because I didn't want to commit to any series.
Fair enough.
And
I was so wrong.
But I wanted to get a hardcover and I haven't found a hardcover anywhere. Maybe I could probably overpay for one from somewhere, but
I don't want
to do that. I have so many books on my bookshelf to get to. I have like 3 or 4 years of reading at the pace that I'm going. So yeah. I have one more movie on my top list though that I wanted to mention just because it was a very like influential transitional movie for me.
Okay.
It was more of a thriller, but I consider it like the gateway into my like love of horror.
Okay.
Joyride.
Okay, that's
Paul Walker as Steve Zahn.
I thought that was a good movie, but I preferred The Hitcher from 1984.
I can see that, and I saw The Hitcher after just because that was like the comp movie.
Yep.
But Joyride was one of those movies I used to spend a lot of time at my best friend's house, and it was just one of those DVDs he had in a stack of DVDs in the living room.
Right.
And we would just go through a lot of the like same 12 movies for like weeks at a time. And Joyride was one of those movies that we would find ourselves quoting all the time.
Yep.
And to this day, I still do the like candy cane voice.
Joyride is almost like a combination of The Hitcher and what's that Stephen King movie with the truck?
Maximum Drive or something. Yeah.
No.
Trucks?
No.
What?
Trucks?
No, not Stephen King. Sorry, Steven Spielberg. Done that before. Truck movie. It was like one of his first movies before even Jaws. Duel.
Don't know that one.
So Duel is just basically there's a truck going after a guy, but it's not like a Christine thing. There's a guy in the truck, but you never see him.
Okay.
And he's all just trying to get away from this truck after a certain thing happens. So I think Joyride kind of has that because you don't really see the guy.
Yeah, you only ever see
although he talks, and it's what's his name from Silence of the Lambs, Buffalo Bill, Ted Levine.
Okay.
But it's him because he's got that voice, right?
Gotcha.
I think Joyride is kind of like that 90s horror / thriller. What is the fucking Kurt Russell movie from there? Where his wife, he's kind of left there in the middle of this fucking town. Kurt Russell movies. This is great podcasting, right?
Yeah.
Oh, Breakdown. Have you seen Breakdown?
Oh, I have not. No.
Breakdown is very much like Joyride in a certain aesthetic. So
okay,
fair enough.
I would recommend that too.
I think what one of the things that I've always just latched onto with Joyride though is just that attention, that tension of being pursued and you don't know who's pursuing you, and just that feeling of they're out there, but I don't know who's out there. they get to the motel and Steve Zahn has that interaction with the guy who's just kind of being a dick to the person at the counter, and then he bumps shoulders with him, and it's just like, okay, so I don't like that guy. And then they ultimately end up getting this guy killed, or witnessing in the other room this guy get murdered when it's supposed to be them.
Right.
And just something about like that scene and the tension involved, and then they've got to get away. They still don't know who this person is. They just know that this person's after them.
Right.
It's almost like a pre-internet thing where you're like a troll, like
Yeah.
fucking over at somebody, and then they find out who you are, right?
Right.
They just do it by CB radio.
Yeah.
But it's the same type of thing. Like I'm just gonna fuck with you, and nothing's
Right.
gonna happen.
What could you do with a CB radio nowadays in horror though? Could you effectively do that in a modern movie without cell phones and internet being everywhere contradicting that? Like,
Jim, you're the resident expert on CB radios. Why don't you let us know your
I
expert
mean,
opinion?
you
What,
does this movie
rubber ducky
there's
turning?
still there you still have that excuse me, the anonymity with a CB radio, right? Because there's no caller ID. They don't know who or where you are. You just have to be in range of the radio,
is it
right?
still relevant though? Like, does this movie age well?
I would think so.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously with the advent of cell technology, it probably doesn't, because you would have a different medium, because CB radios really aren't
Well,
used anymore.
I think the wonderful thing is you don't have to have that solution to, oh, my cell phone doesn't work here, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That all horror movies kind of have to.
Right. So that's why I mean, yeah, it's still relevant because it still could be a situation, especially now with people rejecting cell phones and going more back to landlines and that kind of stuff.
Who's
Really? Is
doing
that is that a
that?
thing?
Yeah,
Yeah.
who's doing that?
What?
Who's doing that?
Younger generations are starting to go back to either landlines or dumb phones.
No, where'd you find that information?
Read it on the internet somewhere.
I've not heard that yet. That's
No,
that's
there
interesting.
are I've read some articles where some younger people are starting to reject so much technology. They're with going back to phones that only make phone calls.
Is
I,
this like a mental health thing or an attention
I
span
honestly
thing?
don't know, to be
Yeah.
perfectly honest.
I read on the internet that Jim eats cats.
I do, and dogs.
Yeah.
But anyway, enough politics.
No,
What else you got, David?
this was from years ago. I don't know.
I think that's it for my list of like favorite movies, and then
Okay. Anything else that you've watched or read that you want to talk about?
um so in the spirit of possession, there are two books I wanted to mention that are absolute favorites of mine.
Okay.
The first one being Boys in the Valley by Philip Fracassi.
I have not read it yet. It's on my wish list.
Okay, so do you know what it's about?
No.
It takes place turn of the century, early 1900s. You've got this convent of young boys who are basically like just this mix of orphans, and for whatever reason, these boys are in this convent with priests to join the priesthood. It takes place in somewhere in Pennsylvania, I believe,
Okay.
and they're kind of in the middle of nowhere. And one day, this guy just shows up to the place banging on the door. It's middle of winter, and they're also undergoing they're kind of on a lockdown period because they have these trade systems built with the community, but to get their horse and carriage, it's too much to do regularly, especially with the snow. So
Okay.
they're snowed in. This guy shows up banging on the door to get in. He's clearly sick and he's beat up, and they bring him in. Well, he's possessed. And basically the book does very well of setting the scene of, you've got this isolated setting, they're snowed in, and now you've got this stranger who shows up with an affliction that they have to figure out what to do with.
Right.
And things just go on the rails, and they go off the rails in a hurry. And the writing is done so well. This is one of those books though, when I've talked to people about it who have read it, it seems like people either really love it or just didn't get into it.
Right.
I absolutely loved it. There were a few really perfectly written scenes that just, if you could do a jump scare in a book, there's definitely one in there that I can talk about if you read it.
Okay.
You'll probably know exactly what it is if you read it too. But
Probably.
yeah, an incredible book about possession.
Fair enough. What was the other
Um,
one?
the other one is probably my all-time favorite book by Paul Tremblay, A Head Full of Ghosts.
I love that book.
Yeah, it's absolute favorite. And then I'm really excited because Robert Downey Jr. bought the rights to produce it as a
Did
movie.
he really? Oh, it's about time. That can be done so well.
It's about to be a banger. I just know it.
I can't believe.
And I can't. I want more people to read that book.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like Paul Tremblay is a really divisive author, though. Like he has like a particular voice, and it's a voice I love. He
Fair.
just
Yeah, I'll give you that.
he's not afraid to put a little personality in his writing, like not just
No.
in dialogue, but just like in how he's telling the story. He
Right.
is making like little like snarky remarks in between, and I don't think it takes away from the story, but
Yeah.
like it's not over the top commentary, but
Right.
it just feels like as like a newer author, it feels like, oh, I have permission to be myself and not follow every little rule of how to write. And
Right.
so I appreciate that.
And that's fair. I mean, I've tried 4 of his books and I've liked 2.
Okay.
I love Head Full of Ghosts and I love The Disappearance of Devil's Rock.
Okay.
Those are my 2 favorite. I also read Cabin at the End of the World. I did not like it. And I forget what the 4th book was that I read. I haven't checked out Horror Story yet. I want to, but I haven't yet. Um,
That's next up
but
for me.
it I don't know. I don't feel like I connect with his voice at all.
Really?
But what he does, I really love. Wait, Brahm has a new book coming out. Are you kidding me?
The Evil Inside.
Evil in Me by
Evil in Me.
Brahm.
Yeah.
I've read everything Brahm has written so far that I've been able to find. Krampus, the Child Thief, Old
Slew
Gods,
Bluefoot.
Slewfoot. I
Yeah.
love them all.
Okay. I haven't read any of his stuff, but I love that he does like his own art and everything. His
Yeah.
books look beautiful. Yeah.
Old Gods was the first one I read, and still to this day is my favorite.
Okay.
Because I used to be a big mythology nerd, and I love the worlds that he built. Um, but the Evil in Me, I'm excited. She said it's a possession story, so I'm interested to see what he does with that.
Well, that's exciting.
It
That
is.
might be the first one I read by him then.
I'm excited. Even Slewfoot is a historical book about witchcraft, but and not a whole lot happens in it. A lot of it is more about the evil that people do to each other.
Okay.
And I love that voice, right? Because I think people are probably the scariest thing in the world, right? Because
Unpredictable.
we will always do worse to each other than any monster will ever do,
Mm.
in my opinion.
Well, monsters aren't real, Jim, so
Shut
that's
up,
a
Mark.
fairly good opinion.
What else did you want to talk about, David?
That I think that's all I got on my list.
Okay.
That's all that's on my mind.
I got really into Bizarro this week, Mark. Bizarro horror. And the first book I read was Finger Bang Fang Fuck by Seamus Belial.
Is there buttery popcorn fingers in that?
No, but there is a man that has a forearm as a penis instead of a penis. And then there's a woman that has a wolf head instead of a vagina.
That's interesting.
It is the most absurd, ridiculous, gross story I've ever read in my life. And I loved every minute of it. I gotta look up the name of the second story that I read by him. Oh, it was a Krampus inspired story, but it's a little bit different, right? It's a short story by him, and Krampus, this family is falling on hard times, right? And the father decides he needs a new TV. So they're gonna tell everybody that Krampus stole all of their gifts because they don't have the money because they bought the new TV. So Krampus comes to give the kids retribution.
Oh.
It's great. It was absolutely awesome. I loved it. I have to get the proper name of it because for whatever reason Kindle would not accept it when I tried to send it to myself. Krampus Knocked is what it's called. I also read a short story that I appear in where I get killed by Stuart Bray.
Okay.
Which was amazing. I loved it. It's called Bray. I read Black Friday, Mark, where we both die.
Mm-hmm.
We both bite the big one in that one. It was great.
How do you guys?
I make I make the right choices in that, by the way.
You make absolutely no right choices.
No, I
in that.
do.
So
I
you
do.
bite it
I'm
first.
pragmatic, and
You bite
I'm
it
glad he
first because you
captured.
cannot be patient and think through the situation.
I don't believe in monsters, Jim.
There's no monsters in that one. It's all humans.
How does that make you guys feel as just as readers and fans? How does that make you feel when you guys get included and stuff like that?
It's so I feel so honored. Like, to me, it's amazing. And anybody that's included me when they've asked for my permission, because I do know of 2 more works in progress that I'm going to show up in as part of the story.
Okay.
I only have two, well, actually just one caveat is my character should be gay.
Okay.
That's it. Other than that, you can do whatever else you want. I
You
don't
mean
care.
happy?
So
Like happy, Jim, right? That's what you mean.
No, Mark. No.
If that, with that being a caveat though, like, so one thing is I've never intentionally thought I need to write a gay character for inclusion or anything, but it's something I've thought about of if I did, how would I do it? And one thing is if you mention it, it needs to drive the story in some way, right? And I know earlier you had kind of mentioned liking when characters are interchangeable without the mention. What is your way of like mentioning it without doing it, or do you just prefer it done in action?
It doesn't have to be mentioned at all, right?
Okay.
Like if it comes up in the story, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I'll give you a for instance, like Black Friday with James Cain. When I told him that I just want my character to be gay, right? If the opportunity presents itself, I want him to identify, right?
Okay.
So he gave me the most glorious death scene where it has to be mentioned.
Okay.
And I don't want to ruin it for anybody, but there's a reason that you find out this character is gay.
Okay.
There's absolutely a reason.
Death by Feather Boa.
Yeah, that's it. Mm-hmm.
That's fabulous.
And he even said to me, he goes, you know what? There's actually a character I'm writing in this story, and him being gay would be much more impactful. And he was right. It makes sense. Otherwise, I don't really care. Like in the story Bray, I'm straight.
Okay.
You know, and I really don't care one way or the other.
I
have noticed a theme though that I'm not happy with when people include me in their stories. I'm kind of a dick. I'm usually pretty bossy and sometimes a little obnoxious.
So you asked them to write you into it.
I know.
So feel free to write us into your next novel and have me kill Jim.
I really don't care about the character so much. Most of it, it's just please kill me in the most gruesome way possible.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm writing a documentary about that too.
When I do kill scenes, I never set out to make them as gruesome as possible, but I always try to find when is the appropriate time to stop with the scene.
Right. Yep.
And I don't know if I need to change that mindset at some point. The story I'm writing right now, I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity to like go balls to the wall in some scenes, but I also have to think of like the situation my character's in. This character's not that person at heart.
Right.
They're just in a situation where it's fight or flight.
Right.
So it's like if you're fight or flight mode, when do you stop? Like in life or death situation of defending yourself, when do you let up? And I think that's something I'm going to deal with when I get to some of these scenes I have in mind.
Oh, that sounds glorious! I can't wait.
Can somebody please just have Jim being slowly flayed while they throw like salt on?
That's you've thought about this a lot, huh, Mark?
Oh, that's the least of your worries.
I have a question for you guys. You guys mentioned earlier in the podcast that you guys are doing an anthology, and are you guys just releasing it with your name on it and inviting other authors, or are you guys actually considering writing something yourself?
I am not a writer, so it's other Bizarro authors that I've invited into a Discord. Mark has he had no knowledge of this before today.
No, this is smart. But I could write something. Oh, the death of Jim. How long does this have to be?
5,000 to 7,000 words.
Okay.
And it has to incorporate Bizarro stories and splatterpunk.
Okay. I'll be all over that. When do I need this done by tomorrow? I'll get it done.
January 31st is the deadline to submit.
Okay. Should be a reminder. I'll do it.
Okay. Well,
I'll do it. As bad as it will be fun for me.
Yep. So we currently have, I think it's 8 or 9 authors that have said they want to participate so far.
That's awesome.
So I'm excited. If you're interested in Bizarro or Splatterpunk, David, you're more than welcome.
I'm interested in seeing the official. Is it like an invite only, or is there going to be like a submission calling?
No, it's just a Discord that I set up.
Okay,
I'm
curious to see more on the concept. I've only written one splatterpunk thing, and it was more of an experimental thing of like I did a splatterpunk erotica piece just to see if I could do it or how I felt about it. It's a 10,000 word story, or no, it's longer than that. But it's called Dick Nats, and it's about this guy who's just like the worst type of bachelor.
Yeah.
And he's very irresponsible with women and dating apps, and he's just going from one pursuit to the next.
Yep.
And he gets the wrong one, and suddenly he's dealing with a case of dick rot. But in conjunction with that, he has this increasing sex drive and equipment that will not allow him to perform. And in his pursuit of trying to find this person who plagued him, it goes some fun places. And I had a lot of fun with some of the descriptions, but then like by the end of it, it's like I don't know that I feel comfortable putting this out because number one, actually this is the only reason I would hate for this to be someone's first impression of my writing.
That's fair.
But I don't want to use a pen name.
So the book Finger Bang Fang Fuck, right? That is almost exactly what most people are thinking when they think about Bizarro and Splatterpunk together.
Okay.
It doesn't necessarily have to be erotica, which obviously that one is because it has to be given the story, but it's along those lines. It's absolutely bizarre because people's privates have been exchanged for many, many other things. And then it just gets so bloody and violent that it's so over the top.
So thanks for the inspiration, Jim. I will add the erotica into my story.
You can
via maybe like a horse or something. I don't know.
Whatever makes you happy, buddy.
Well, not me. Well, you won't be happy either.
I don't mind. I don't mind. But
no, I'm sure you don't.
What are some animals that haven't been done sexually on book or screen? Like, what's something that would really like? Because you're talking Bizarro, you got to go weird. I feel like a horse has been done.
Yeah,
I feel like in the
donkey, none of that.
In the boys, they recently explored octopus. That was something they recently did.
Giraffe.
Sperm whale.
Haven't heard anything about that yet.
Sperm whale. I mean, it really does just
dolphins. That's a thing, but
yeah, I've heard about that. Horses could be interesting, right?
A honey badger.
Honey badger don't give a shit.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Exactly.
So we're kind of running a little over here, but just before I forget, so we talked about possession. I don't want to.
Can I finish what I've watched?
No. So okay, go ahead.
No, it's fine. Finish.
No. I'm being Zan. Come on, go ahead.
So, no, the only other thing that I watched. So I talked about the 2 books. I'm also in the middle of. Hold on a minute. I gotta pull it up.
A donkey and a horse.
Extreme Bizarro is the story of the anthology I'm in the middle of. I don't know why, but there's a couple stories in here, right? Like one is about a group of people that are fame sexual. They can only get off if they're watching famous people have sex.
Interesting.
And then there's one other one I want to bring up before I get this. Thunder John wasn't it? Little Crawler, right? There's a story in here called Little Crawler. And I apologize that I don't know off the top of my head who wrote it, but the next story is called I Love Octopus, by the way. I just saw that. So Little Crawler is about a woman who finally has a baby, right? She finally has a baby. And so she is at this vacation home in the English countryside, and she drops her baby out of a window.
Like, so it starts off this way?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, wow.
So the story picks up where she gets out of jail, and she decides she wants to go back to the place where her baby died. And she finds this dead baby. And the dead baby wants to be inside of its mother. That's all I'm going to say.
Sounds interesting enough.
It's something. It's
Like
something.
like my brain is like, is this possession or is it in a literal
No,
sense?
this is physical and literal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nice.
No, this is not possession.
It's like the end of Brain Dead.
This baby is turning the mother or would-be mother into a puppet.
Yeah, essentially. Yep. Anyway, Mark, you were saying. Oh, I
No,
also
no,
watched the new Crow remake. It was very lazy. I did not enjoy it. Anyway, Mark, go ahead.
What was the movie?
The
The
Crow
Crow.
Oh,
with Bill
okay.
Skarsgård. It felt very lazy and very meh. Like the vibe of the entire movie is eh.
When I saw the trailer, my reaction to it was why.
Yeah. But that's the thing I do want to point out. This is not a remake of The Crow with Brandon Lee. The storyline is completely different.
Okay.
The only thing that is consistent is the name of the two main characters.
I was not even a big fan of the original.
I
It
really
was
wasn't
okay.
either.
I'm not a huge fan of it. I always preferred The Wraith with Charlie Sheen.
Okay. I haven't seen that one.
So anyway, before we sign off, because we're talking about possession, and I just don't want to leave this out there because I won't sleep tonight. So there's other sorts of possession, right? So there's like alien or creature possession, and you look at
Alien possession?
Yeah, like Night of the Creeps.
Okay, fair
Slither,
enough. That's almost like a parasite. Gotcha. Yep.
Yeah.
right? Which are basically the same.
Yeah.
But then there's also, have you seen The Bay?
I have not.
No.
Which is another kind of mockumentary about
Wasn't that one that was written by Stephanie Meyer, wasn't? Oh no, that was the host. Never mind.
No. So The Bay is about an actual creature that lives in the ocean, but it swims into like a fish's mouth and takes over his tongue. So it gets all the food. And it kind of expands on that, but it's a really good mockumentary. What was the other one I was thinking about? The Bay and I don't know. I don't remember. Anyway, so I just wanted to mention that it doesn't have to be a spiritual.
That's fair. You're right.
You can have other sorts of things taking over your mind.
The Faculty, Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I was going to say Invasion of the Body Snatchers, but I don't think that's true.
Okay.
Because they kill you and
they replicate you. Yeah.
It's the same as the thing, right? It kills you and makes a copy.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Okay, folks. David, I want to say thank you very much for joining us today.